Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by MinerFae on Wattpad. Now let's start. Long ago, the kingdom of Clovers faced an attack from a monstrous creature that wreaked havoc throughout the land. Many lives were lost that day, but a single man, known as the Wizard King, confronted the beast and ultimately saved the kingdom, risking his own life in the process. Since then, the Wizard King became a legend, known across nations. Years passed, and a new Wizard King emerged, rumored to be even stronger than the last. In this world, every person possessed magical abilities, except for one green-haired boy who had none at all. This boy, Izuku, was often seen as useless and pathetic by those around him. Despite this, he harbored a dream of becoming the Wizard King, a dream that seemed impossible without magic. On a hilltop, heavy breathing echoed as Izuku ran down, sweat dripping from his face. He had messy green hair, a worn t-shirt, gray breathes, and red shoes. He had just completed an intense exercise routine, running up and down the hill until he could barely continue. Izuku was not scrawny. He had a well-built physique, with toned arms and legs, and a hint of a four-pack that was usually hidden beneath his shirt. He was now heading back to the church where he had lived since he was a baby. As he approached, a farmer called out to him, and Izuku waved back, slightly out of breath. Upon reaching the church, he was greeted by Sister Lily, a nun he had grown fond of over the years. Though he had developed a crush on her, he kept his feelings to himself. He noticed her struggling with a pile of clothes and offered to help, causing her to smile appreciatively. Flustered, he stumbled over his words and tripped, only to be caught by his childhood friend, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, who was accompanied by other kids. 𝐀𝐮, frustrated, scolded Izuku for almost dropping the clothes, while Izuku apologized profusely. Sister Lily intervened, asking 𝐀𝐮 to be kinder. 𝐀𝐮 dropped Izuku unceremoniously and remarked on Izuku's lack of magic, which made Izuku feel uneasy. Despite the teasing, Izuku stood up and declared his determination to become the Wizard King one day, insisting that he would not give up on his dreams. Sister Lily reassured him that soon he would receive his grimoire, which would allow him to use magic. 𝐀𝐮, with his hands in his pockets, felt a mix of admiration and fear towards Izuku. He recognized Izuku as a rival, someone who could challenge him for the title of Wizard King. This fueled 𝐀𝐮's relentless training in his explosion magic, ensuring he stayed ahead of Izuku. Meanwhile, Izuku continued his training, pushing himself to complete as many push-ups as possible. The doubts of the townsfolk and the other children only strengthened his resolve. He vowed to prove them wrong, declaring that he would become the Wizard King, no matter the odds. In March, as dandelion seeds danced in the air, the ceremony began. Many hopefuls gathered at the tallest tower to discover the types of grimoires they would receive. An elder, wearing a large cap, welcomed the young participants and spoke of their bright futures filled with faith, hope, and love. As the grimoires floated down from the tower, excitement filled the air. Each participant eagerly grabbed their books, boasting about their unique finds. However, Izuku stood there, watching as the others received their grimoires, feeling a mix of anticipation and uncertainty as he waited for his turn. The boy wore a shocked yet determined expression, repeatedly thinking about how he was supposed to receive a grimoire, but nothing appeared. Izuku's voice broke the silence in the room, catching everyone's attention as he admitted that he hadn't received his grimoire yet. The response was dismissive, suggesting he try again next year, which left him in disbelief. As he processed this, his head hung low, hair obscuring his eyes while tears streamed down his cheeks. Meanwhile, 𝐀𝐮 stood proudly with his grimoire, radiating a powerful yellow and reddish aura. He declared himself the future Wizard King, drawing cheers from the crowd. After the ceremony, Izuku sat beneath a tree, lost in thought. He felt a mix of sadness and frustration, realizing that his dream seemed even more out of reach without a grimoire. Yet, he resolved not to give up, wiping his tears and vowing to become the Wizard King no matter what. he decided it was time to resume his training. As he contemplated his next steps, he noticed 𝐻𝐿 walking toward the tower's gate. 𝐻𝐿, hands in pockets, was about to do something when golden chains erupted from a grimoire, ensnaring him. 𝐻𝐿 struggled against the restraints, furious and defiant. A man with long hair explained that the spell immobilized both movement and magic. 𝐻𝐿, filled with rage, threatened the man, vowing revenge once he broke free. The man chuckled, revealing that while 𝐻𝐿 was chosen by the grimoire, he posed no threat and would soon meet his end. Izuku, breathing and determined, rushed toward them, calling out to 𝐻𝐿. The man dismissed him as the boy who had not been chosen. Undeterred, Izuku declared his intent to save 𝐻𝐿. 𝐻𝐿 shouted for him to leave, but Izuku remembered to use his surroundings. He picked up a rock, ready to act. As chains shot toward him, he threw the rock with all his might, striking the man and seizing the opportunity to dash past him. He knew that fighting directly would be futile. Instead, he aimed to free 𝐻𝐿. Izuku struggled against the chains binding 𝐻𝐿, who questioned his actions. With tears in his eyes, Izuku expressed that he couldn't just stand by and watch his friend suffer. The man, infuriated, unleashed another spell, sending chains with snake-like heads toward Izuku. The chains struck him, causing him to cry out in pain as he was thrown back against the wall, blood spilling from his wounds. The villain taunted him, revealing that he could sense a person's magical power through the chains. He mocked Izuku's efforts, stating that he had no magic and suggesting that he was born a failure. Izuku's heart sank as he processed the man's words. If he truly had no magic, what was the point of his dreams? He felt lost and defeated, questioning the purpose of striving to be the Wizard King without any magical abilities. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm him, 𝐻𝐿's voice broke through the darkness. He stood up, defiant and unyielding, challenging the man who had belittled Izuku. 𝐻𝐿 defended Izuku, emphasizing his relentless spirit and determination, despite the odds stacked against him. He had witnessed Izuku's struggles and resilience, and he refused to let anyone diminish his friend's worth. He never gives in to negativity. He doesn't care what others call him because he decides what he wants to do. Izuku finds him more of a threat than anyone else around, because he is his rival. At that moment, Izuku's eyes opened wide with determination as he reached out and grasped the villain's arm tightly. He looked up with a determined grin, feeling grateful for the support he had received. He was going to defeat this enemy. Suddenly, a grimoire burst to life, radiating a red aura in front of him. Izuku's eyes widened in realization. That was a grimoire. 𝐒𝐿𝐴 grinned, confident in his friend's potential. A massive black sword emerged from the book, towering above Izuku. The sight of the blade shocked the villain, who stepped back in disbelief, sweat trickling down his face. He questioned the power of Izuku's magic, feeling an unsettling fear as he saw the shadow looming behind Izuku, resembling a demon. Desperate, the villain shouted for Izuku to stay away, summoning chains to restrain him. Izuku kicked off the ground and slashed through the chains, feeling the thrill of his magic. The villain was taken aback, realizing his own magic had been erased. Izuku's shoes slammed onto the concrete floor as he pulled back his giant black blade, his eyes burning with determination. Even without magic, he declared he would become the Wizard King. He swung his sword across the villain's torso, sending him flying back with a powerful strike. The villain crashed into a brick wall, creating a massive crater. Izuku breathed heavily, wiping the blood from his mouth, but he smiled as he held up his grimoire, feeling a surge of triumph. As he celebrated, he noticed 𝐻𝐿 approaching him. 𝐻𝐿 acknowledged Izuku's achievement, though he insisted he didn't need help. He thanked Izuku begrudgingly, but made it clear that their rivalry was far from over. Izuku smiled, raising his fist for a fist bump, eager to see who would reach the top first. 𝐒𝐿𝐴 chuckled, responding with a fist bump of his own, calling Izuku a nerd. 6 months later, the magic night testing began. Izuku and 𝐒𝐿𝐴 made their way to the testing area, a grand arena filled with various warlocks and 9 orders serving the emperor. The stakes were high, as these knights risked their lives for the kingdom, earning the admiration of the people. All eyes turned to Katsuki, who was recognized as the one chosen by the four-leaf clover. Meanwhile, Izuku found himself swarmed by birds, their pecking painful, yet he tried to remain cheerful. One bird bit his nose, causing him to yelp in surprise as he ran in the opposite direction, trying to shake them off. In his frantic escape, he bumped into a tall figure with a muscular build. The captain, Yami, glared down at him with an intimidating presence. Izuku, terrified, apologized profusely, pleading for forgiveness. Yami lifted him off the ground, expressing his annoyance. Just then, another captain intervened, saving Izuku from Yami's wrath and letting him down gently. The crowd cheered as 𝐿𝐼𝐵, the captain of the strongest knights of the Golden Sunrise, appeared, known to be next in line for the Wizard King. 𝐿𝐼𝐵 began the test, summoning magical roots that transformed into brooms for the contestants. As the test commenced, it became clear that Izuku was struggling. While others soared through the air with ease, he found himself unable to lift his broom. Whispers filled the air as contestants questioned his presence in the competition. Just then, a friendly face appeared beside him. The man introduced himself as 𝐬𝐿𝐼𝐵, encouraging Izuku to relax and not try too hard. Izuku admired 𝐬𝐿𝐼𝐵's confidence, though he sensed a hidden agenda behind the smile. The test progressed rapidly, with contestants showcasing their magical abilities. Most performed admirably, while Izuku faced one failure after another. Time flew by until 𝐿𝐼𝐵 announced the conclusion of the exam, revealing that the next phase would be a sparring match. Contestants could choose their opponents, and Izuku felt a wave of anxiety wash over him. Just then, 𝐬𝐿𝐼𝐵 stepped forward, offering to fight Izuku. Overwhelmed with emotion, Izuku could hardly believe it. 𝐬𝐿𝐼𝐵 assured him they would continue until one of them surrendered or was unable to continue. A wizard capable of healing stood before the eager participants, urging them to fight as if their lives depended on it. 𝐿𝐼𝐵 called for the first pair to step forward, and Izuku, with a determined smile, encouraged 𝐬𝐿𝐼𝐵 to do their best. 𝐬𝐿𝐼𝐵, leaning in with a mischievous grin, taunted Izuku, suggesting he would easily join the Magic Knights and leave Izuku to wallow in his own misery. With a loud shout of "Begin!" 𝐬𝐿𝐼𝐵's demeanor shifted back to a friendly tone as he prepared for the match. He summoned his grimoire, flipping through its pages to create a protective shield around himself. Observers noted his impressive magic, with one blonde man commenting on 𝐬𝐿𝐼𝐵's resemblance to a peculiar insect. As the match unfolded, 𝐬𝐿𝐼𝐵 smirked, challenging Izuku to bring everything he had. Izuku, locking his gaze onto 𝐬𝐿𝐼𝐵, prepared for action. He launched himself forward at incredible speed, his grimoire manifesting a massive black sword. Yami and 𝐿𝐼𝐵 were taken aback by Izuku's sheer strength and determination, mistakenly believing he was using an acceleration spell. In a swift motion, Izuku's sword shattered 𝐬𝐿𝐼𝐵's shield effortlessly. Without hesitation, he struck down, sending 𝐬𝐿𝐼𝐵 crashing into the ground and creating a large crater. The spectators gasped in disbelief, their eyes wide as they witnessed Izuku's overwhelming power. He declared his ambition to become the Wizard King and save as many people as possible, impressing Yami and Bakugo, while 𝐿𝐼𝐵 looked on with concern. As the day progressed, the matches continued until it was time to determine which Magic Knights the young participants would join. Bakugo's number was called, and despite some hesitations about his fiery personality, he confidently chose to join the Golden Sunrise. When it was Izuku's turn, he stepped onto the platform, raising his head high to face the captains. However, as he waited, no hands were raised in his direction. Feeling embarrassed and anxious, he wished for just one person to accept him. Yami, puffing on his cigarette, pointed out the harsh reality that no one wanted a power they couldn't identify. Izuku's magic surged, and the entire stadium felt his aura. Yami challenged him, questioning how he could aspire to be the Wizard King without any magic. Izuku, despite the pressure, declared his unwavering dream of becoming the Wizard King, wanting to prove that someone like him could rise to the top. Yami laughed, finding Izuku's ambition amusing, but then unexpectedly invited him to join the Black Bulls, making it clear that he had no choice in the matter. Izuku was taken aback, realizing Yami was the first to believe in him. Overwhelmed with emotion, he wiped his tears and accepted the offer, vowing to give it his all. Yami, with a fierce demeanor, warned Izuku to be ready for the challenges ahead. He expressed his frustration at having to wait for Izuku, who stuttered in response, trying to explain himself. Yami, not in the mood for excuses, commanded Izuku to enter a portal created by 𝗀𝗱, who was struggling to maintain it. As Izuku stepped through the portal, he found himself in a completely new area, staring at a run-down structure that resembled a dungeon. The adventure was just beginning, and Izuku felt a mix of excitement and trepidation as he prepared for what lay ahead. It exploded, sending shockwaves through the air. Yami shouted for everyone to get ready, his voice booming with authority. Izuku found himself amidst chaos, witnessing a fierce battle where a man wielded flaming bats, a small girl devoured food with enthusiasm, another guy seemed distracted by a photo, and a towering figure loomed over the rest. Izuku felt a shiver run down his spine. He realized he was in the presence of the infamous Black Bulls, the lowest-ranked order of knights. Nervously, he introduced himself, bowing deeply, but his greeting went unnoticed. A heavy rain of disappointment fell from his eyes as he thought, "They didn't hear me." Suddenly, a massive fireball hurtled toward him. In sheer panic, he leaped upward just as it exploded on impact. Yami's roar echoed through the chaos, demanding that everyone stop destroying the place. Izuku thought to himself, "But you're doing the same thing." The commotion ceased as everyone turned their attention to Yami, praising him and expressing how much they missed him. Yami smiled, and Izuku felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps he wasn't as intimidating as he seemed. But then Yami returned to his cold demeanor, stating he didn't care about anything. Yami announced that Izuku was the newest member of the Black Bulls and instructed everyone to show him the ropes without causing harm. Izuku felt flustered being the center of attention, bowing to each member with enthusiasm. Yami playfully lifted him by his shirt, warning him not to ruin the atmosphere with excessive politeness. Izuku stammered, trying to explain himself, but was caught off guard when a woman approached him, her presence overwhelming. She teased him about being cute, and he blushed furiously, mentioning that his mother had taught him manners. Just then, the little girl unexpectedly lost her lunch, causing Izuku to step back just in time. Concerned, he asked if she was okay, but 𝗀𝗱, another member, explained that she was just a drunk. Izuku was then confronted by Magna, who towered over him and questioned his worthiness as a new member. Magna brandished a black hoodie with a bull emblem, declaring that Izuku would need to earn his place in the Black Bulls. Izuku admired the robe, expressing his longing to have one, but Magna smirked, telling him he would have to face the Black Bulls' welcoming ceremony first. Moments later, under the moonlight, Izuku and Magna stood ready to spar, while the others watched from the sidelines. Magna challenged Izuku to a one-on-one fight, eager to see how long he could last. Izuku felt a mix of excitement and dread, knowing he was about to face someone ranked above him. As Magna unleashed a fiery attack, Izuku instinctively raised his sword, managing to counter the strike with a powerful swing that sent shockwaves through the arena. The crowd gasped in surprise at Izuku's strength, and Yami crossed his arms, intrigued by the unfolding battle. Izuku felt the pressure as Magna's flames swirled around him, and he realized he needed to push himself further. Magna taunted him, fainting high before launching a fiery blast aimed directly at Izuku's chest. The explosion knocked him off his feet, and he rolled across the ground, struggling to catch his breath. Despite the pain coursing through him, Izuku's grip on his sword remained firm, his determination unyielding. Yami observed closely, impressed by Izuku's resilience. Others expressed doubt about his ability to recover, but Izuku pushed himself up from the ground, refusing to give in. The fight was far from over, and he was determined to prove himself worthy of the Black Bulls. Using his sword for support, Izuku pushed himself even further, determined to go beyond his limits. He glared at Magna, expressing his resolve. Magna grinned, encouraging him with enthusiasm. Flames erupted into the air as Magna unleashed his fire magic, exploding rounds. Izuku slammed his sword onto the ground, causing a dent and cracking it open. Gritting his teeth, he summoned all his strength and pulled his arms upward, letting out a powerful roar. Multiple rifts of concrete platforms appeared in the air, forming walls and blocks that shielded him from the rapid-fire attacks Magna sent his way. Luck watched in awe, marveling at Izuku's strength. 𝗏𝗏 noted how Izuku used the end of his blade to lift the concrete, showcasing incredible muscle power. Smoke filled the area, obscuring Magna's vision and disrupting his focus. Realizing this was part of Izuku's strategy, Magna prepared for his next move. He pulled his sword back like a baseball bat and struck the concrete rocks, sending them flying toward Magna, who was caught off guard. Magna cursed as he struggled to see through the smoke, realizing he was at a disadvantage. Izuku seized the opportunity, closing the gap between them. He understood he couldn't defeat Magna in a direct confrontation, so he devised a plan to lower Magna's defenses first. By using the environment to his advantage, he aimed to blind Magna and create openings for his attacks. Standing face to face with Magna, Izuku swung his sword back, expressing his gratitude for the underestimation he faced. As he charged forward, Magna summoned a fiery bat and mirrored his movements, resulting in a massive explosion that pushed everyone back, except for Yami, who remained unfazed and grinning at the spectacle. As the smoke cleared, Izuku stood with his sword outstretched, while Magna found himself on the other side of the battlefield. Izuku, weary and marked from the fight, managed a grin, declaring that he could still move. Yami recognized the kid's determination and excitement. Members of the Black Bulls rushed to Izuku's side, eager to engage him in friendly competition. Charmy offered him a muffin, which brought tears of joy to his eyes. Izuku expressed his gratitude, and Charmy playfully encouraged him to relax, noting they were almost the same age. Magna, impressed by Izuku's strength and intelligence, complimented him and presented him with the Black Bull's scarf, making Izuku blush with gratitude. As he accepted the scarf, he felt overwhelmed with emotion, promising not to let them down. Unbeknownst to them, a woman with silver hair observed from atop the dungeon, muttering to herself. Meanwhile, Magna excitedly announced a tour of the dungeon, and Izuku eagerly followed. They explored the mess hall, the bathhouse, and the sleeping quarters, where Magna humorously warned Izuku about the traps for intruders. As they ventured deeper into the dungeon, Magna carried Izuku on his back, both enjoying the experience. Suddenly, they stumbled upon Yami in an unexpected situation, prompting a hasty retreat. After regaining their composure, they encountered a silver-haired girl, whom Magna introduced as Izuku's equal, having been admitted to the Black Bulls this year. Izuku greeted her warmly, but the encounter took an unexpected turn when she kicked him, leaving him stunned. Magna rushed towards Izuku, concern etched on his face as he grabbed him. He asked if Izuku was okay, urging him to speak. Izuku gasped, feeling a wave of pain, and lamented the unfairness of the situation. Magna shouted at the silver-haired girl walking away, questioning her actions. The girl, 𝗏𝗡𝐿, coldly dismissed them, asserting her royal lineage and the insignificance of their magic compared to hers. Izuku felt a chill run through him, realizing her status. Despite his pain, he tried to stand tall, insisting that they were equals. Magna admired Izuku's determination, even in the face of adversity. 𝗏𝗏 raised her hand, a blue aura swirling around it as she prepared to demonstrate her magic. Izuku's heart raced as he sensed the immense power building. Suddenly, the attack veered off course, striking Magna instead, who reacted with outrage. 𝗏𝗏 remained silent, her demeanor icy as she walked away, discarding the Black Bull's robe as if it were worthless. Izuku felt a pang of disappointment at the sight of the robe he had worked hard to earn. He quickly jogged over to retrieve it, explaining to Magna that he intended to keep it in case 𝗏𝗏 changed her mind. Magna expressed disbelief at Izuku's loyalty to someone who had disrespected him. As they entered Izuku's room, he proudly showed off the messy space, despite its disarray. He declared his determination to make it work, inspired by Magna's encouragement. Thoughts of his friend 𝗏𝗏 filled his mind as he reflected on his new surroundings. The next day, Izuku ventured outside, searching for a restroom. He felt groggy and was startled by a sudden shockwave rippling through the woods. Just in time, he dodged a massive water ball attack that nearly hit him. As he landed, he was astonished to see 𝗏𝗏 standing amidst the chaos, struggling with her magic. Determined to prove herself, she unleashed a powerful attack that shook the ground, drawing the attention of her teammates. Vanessa marveled at Noelle's display of power, while Yami expressed concern about the potential destruction. They realized they needed to intervene before things escalated further. Just then, Izuku was propelled into the air by Yami, who instructed him to take action. Izuku felt panic rise within him as he soared upward, unsure of how to help. Seeing Noelle trapped in her own magic ignited a fierce determination in Izuku. He drew his grimoire and unsheathed his black sword, slashing through the water ball and nullifying her magic. Both he and Noelle began to fall, and Izuku's mind raced as he realized he hadn't thought about how to land. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm him, a portal opened, and Finral appeared, creating another portal that allowed them to land safely. Izuku gasped in relief, celebrating his survival as Yami praised him for his bravery. He turned to Noelle, who appeared defeated and worried about the judgment she would face from her peers. Ignoring her apprehension, Izuku knelt and offered her the Black Bull's robe, affirming that she was part of their team, whether she wanted to be or not. Regret all you want, but they were the ones who accepted you. Your magic was truly remarkable. Izuku felt a surge of curiosity and excitement, asking about the details of her abilities, how she controlled her water magic, and if he could see her grimoire. He wondered how old she was when she awakened her powers and if her family was just as strong. Yami groaned, feeling annoyed at the endless questions. Izuku quickly responded, eager to please. Luck, with a grin, expressed his admiration for her strength and suggested they spar someday. Charmy appeared out of nowhere, offering food and claiming her expertise in magic control. Noelle, overwhelmed with emotion, finally let her tears flow, feeling accepted for the first time. Izuku extended his hand, and Noelle gratefully took it, ready to embark on her journey. He placed the Black Bull's robe on her chest, symbolizing their bond. As Izuku munched on his bread, he tried to adjust to life with the Black Bulls. He asked Magna what an order of magic knights did, prompting an annoyed response from Magna, who grabbed Izuku's hoodie and lifted him slightly off the ground. He explained that they protected and served important people, questioning why Izuku would join without knowing that. Izuku choked on his food, insisting he was just curious. Vanessa leaned in, tipsy, mentioning that they also protected the people, hinting at the potential for romance. Luck enthusiastically shared that there were exciting jobs, like fighting, and he wouldn't hesitate to take down a criminal. Gauche pulled out a photo of his sister, Maria, expressing that they could use their pay to spoil her. Minutes passed, and Magna announced that Izuku and Noelle would go on their first mission to the village of Sashi to hunt a boar. The two were taken aback, thinking the mission seemed trivial. Yami appeared, explaining he lost a bet and had to fulfill the request to help the village in need. Izuku spoke up, noting that people under pressure could be incredibly strong. Noelle, embarrassed, hesitated, admitting her lack of control over her magic. Magna shouted that she would improve by going on missions, assuring her he would handle any mess. Noelle felt a warmth in her heart at Magna's kindness, and he playfully brushed off her compliment. Magna then revealed they would have to fly on brooms, which worried Izuku and Noelle, both admitting they couldn't fly. Magna, shocked, released Izuku and declared he would get them there on his favorite broom. To their surprise, he presented a broom adorned with a skeleton boar. He named it the Crazy Cyclone, and Izuku's eyes sparkled with excitement, while Noelle looked skeptical. Magna hopped on the broom with Izuku on his back and Noelle behind them, ready to take off. As they soared into the sky, they soon arrived at the village, only to find it shrouded in mist. Izuku sensed something was off and, with determination, pulled out his grimoire and black sword, slashing through the mist until it cleared. The sight that greeted them was shocking. Ice spikes loomed over the village, and villagers were bruised and battered, praying for help. An unknown man declared that execution was imminent, and the spikes began to fall, targeting the villagers. Without hesitation, Magna unleashed his fire magic, creating explosions that shattered the spikes and saved the villagers just in time. The townspeople cheered, grateful for their saviors. However, Magna's attention shifted to the man with the grimoire, who seemed unfazed by the chaos. The man checked his watch, annoyed that the villagers had been given extra time, and summoned a giant ice rift aimed at the two. Realizing the urgency, Izuku kicked off the ground, his black sword poised and ready. He drew back the blade, gathering momentum before launching it forward, determined to protect those in need. The sword sliced through the ice effortlessly, splitting it into two pieces. Izuku pushed himself off the concrete ground, determined to confront the enemy. He declared that he would protect Magna's senpai and demanded to know why they would harm innocent people. The mysterious figures before him did not resemble spies or ordinary thieves, leaving him puzzled about their true identity. The villain remained silent until he announced his sinister plan, stating that in 5 minutes, he would destroy the village that had done nothing wrong. Izuku charged at him, his sword striking the ground and creating a fissure. He demanded answers, but the villain countered with a spell, enveloping the area in a swirling fog. Izuku, undeterred, cut through the illusion with incredible speed, landing a blow on the villain and sending him airborne. The villain, now wounded, realized that Izuku's sword negated magic. In response, the villain summoned a powerful spell, causing large ice spikes to erupt from the ground. Izuku skillfully dodged the spikes, slicing through them as he advanced. However, the villain retaliated by creating an ice wall that trapped Izuku. Magna shouted his name in concern. With swift determination, Izuku broke free from the ice trap and charged at the villain once more, swinging his sword with all his might. The villain conjured a massive snow statue, which struck Izuku with tremendous force, causing him to cry out in pain. The battle escalated as the villain unleashed more ice magic, forming a tendril that struck Izuku, causing him to stagger. Despite the pain, Izuku glared defiantly at the villain, questioning his motives for attacking the village. The villain explained his disdain for the villagers, viewing them as insignificant due to their low magical abilities. Izuku, recalling a conversation from his past about discrimination, felt a surge of anger. He stood tall, determined to protect the villagers and stop the villain, declaring that being a magic knight meant turning dreams into reality. As the villain summoned more ice, Izuku realized he needed help. Fortunately, Magna's magic reignited, and he created a fiery bat to shatter the ice spikes. Together, they fought valiantly, but the relentless onslaught of ice continued. Just when it seemed hopeless, 𝐴𝐿 intervened, using her magic to destroy an ice shard that threatened the villagers. Grateful for her assistance, Izuku felt renewed determination. The battle raged on, with Magna and Izuku working in tandem to fend off the ice statue. However, the statue retaliated, knocking them both to the ground. Izuku felt a sharp pain, but he refused to give up. With a fierce resolve, he prepared to rise again, ready to fight for the villagers and prove that their lives mattered. 𝐴𝐿 watched the two fighters struggle for their lives, feeling a pang of insecurity. She thought to herself that she was royalty with immense magical power, yet in that moment she felt like a waste of space. Izuku coughed, gripping his sword tightly, but he had no time to dwell on the pain as multiple ice shards struck his arms and sides, causing him to cry out. A voice called out to him, and he turned to see Magna being lifted high into the air by a statue. Magna shouted for everyone to get back before being slammed onto the ground, the impact knocking the wind out of him. He gasped, struggling to breathe as the statue tightened its grip around his throat and hurled him toward the ice shards that pierced his back. Desperation filled Magna as he thought about fleeing, but then he felt a tug on his arm. He looked down to see a little girl clinging to him, pleading for help. 𝐴𝐿 gritted her teeth, feeling a surge of magic inscribe itself into her grimoire. With newfound determination, she glared at the statue and declared that she would not run away. Water formed around her and the people she aimed to protect, and she unleashed a powerful spell, sending a massive wave toward the statue, dissolving it into pieces along with the villain's minions. Magna, blood dripping from his lip, admired 𝐴𝐿's incredible magic power, wondering if she could hold her ground. The ice villain, 𝐻𝐿, was taken aback by the display of magic. Izuku burst through the smoke, sword extended, proclaiming that he might lack magical powers, but he would still save everyone with a smile. He charged at the villain, landing a direct blow that caused 𝐻𝐿 to stagger, blood spilling from his mouth as he fought to remain conscious. Noelle's eyes widened in concern, questioning if Izuku had one. Izuku felt the weight of his power falter as he realized Heath had trapped his feet in ice, stalling his momentum. In desperation, he pulled his blade back, determined to swing again with all his strength. Heath, however, countered with a powerful ice spike that erupted from the ground, piercing Izuku's gut. He cried out in pain, blood spilling as he collapsed to the ground, ice shards raining down upon him. Heath approached, wiping blood from his mouth, taunting Izuku to rest for eternity. Magna, filled with worry, acknowledged the overwhelming magic power of the young girl. He knew he had to act quickly, despite his dwindling magic reserves. He thought about the battle ahead, realizing he had the advantage with his fire magic against ice, but the difference in their magical strength was daunting. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, Izuku roared defiantly, pulling his blade back once more. Heath, surprised by Izuku's resilience, summoned another ice spike that shot through Izuku's shoulder, launching him into the air. Despite his injuries, Izuku remained determined, dodging multiple ice spikes and slashing through them with precision. He felt the blood drip from his mouth but refused to give in. Heath's voice echoed, questioning Izuku's chances of victory. Izuku's voice trembled as he expressed his longing to live up to people's expectations, to become a Mega Knight, and protect others with a smile. He declared his ambition to become the Wizard King, igniting a spark of respect in Magna. Heath dismissed Izuku's dream as foolish, but Magna, fueled by anger, declared that if anyone was to be killed, it would be him. Izuku, inspired by Magna's bravery, prepared to charge alongside him. They both launched at Heath, with Izuku swinging his sword. Heath attempted to block with an ice wall, but it shattered under the force of Izuku's strike. Magna followed up with a powerful blow, knocking Heath back. As ice pillars erupted from the ground, threatening to halt their momentum, Magna quickly grabbed Izuku, spinning him around and launching him toward Heath. The villain created multiple ice statues to defend himself, but a giant water ball, conjured by Noelle, crashed into the statues, obliterating them. Izuku, invigorated by Noelle's support, swung his sword with all his might, creating a massive crater that rippled across the ground. However, Heath evaded the attack, flipping back into the air. Magna prepared for his turn, ready to unleash his fire magic in response. Flaming prison streak. Bullets of flames swarmed around Heath like a cage. Heath shouted, using ice magic to create an ice crystallization shield, blocking each of the fire bullets. He thought to himself that it was pathetic. Izuku, moving with full force, attacked from behind, bashing the fire bullets back at Heath. After taking the bait, Heath realized he had been struck from his blind spot. Explosions erupted from the ground, staggering Heath back. He thought to himself that if the fire wouldn't extinguish, he would just freeze it. Izuku, determined, pulled back his sword and roared that he wasn't done yet. Heath's eyes widened in shock and fear at Izuku's sudden appearance. He refused to accept defeat to someone he considered a brat. With all the power left in his body, Izuku swung his sword like a bat, slicing through Heath and scattering ice across the ground, forcing Heath onto his knees. Heath, feeling defeated, thought that he had lost to this little brat before his body went limp and fell to the ground. Noelle shouted in joy that Izuku had done it this time. Fire then swirled around Heath, encasing him in a prison created by Magna, who had little power left. Magna manipulated his magic, transforming it from inferno into an exploding straitjacket. Noelle commented on Magna's skill, to which he responded with frustration. One of Heath's men began to slide away, attempting to escape. Magna shouted in frustration, realizing he had let one get away. Noelle chided him for being careless, and Magna retorted, laughing at Noelle's ripped uniform. Izuku breathed heavily before dropping to the floor, finally letting go of his sword. He breathed heavily, realizing he had done it. Magna approached him, noting that Izuku was likely knocked out from blood loss. Noelle walked up to him, reflecting on Izuku's reckless nature, but her cheeks flushed slightly as she acknowledged his amazing abilities. Magna sighed, noting that they still didn't know what their enemies were truly after, but they could make them talk later. A bulge behind Izuku's hoodie began to move, revealing a bird with horns and a half-eyed look. The bird flew high into the air, entering a church before returning to Izuku. One of the villagers remarked on how amazing it was to see someone so young. The bird landed on Izuku's back, plucking at something in its mouth and repeatedly slamming it into Izuku's neck, causing him to shout in pain. Rubbing his neck, Izuku gently held the bird in his hand, surprised to realize he had been carrying it the whole time. A man explained that the stone the bird had was a keepsake from the chief. He offered it to Izuku, expressing gratitude for saving them. Izuku smiled kindly, his cheeks blushing, and Noelle turned away, flustered by his adorable smile. A few minutes later, Heath finally woke up, and Magna informed him that he could go back to sleep once his magic returned, as he would be taken into custody for his actions. Heath looked down to see his chest encased in a fire cage, realizing his magic had been sealed. Magna demanded that Heath start talking, but Heath refused. Suddenly, his chest glowed with a crimson-white light, expanding until giant ice spikes erupted from his body, taking him and his men with him. The grimoire slowly faded away until nothing remained. Izuku gritted his teeth, looking at the cloak Heath had left behind, wondering why people gave up so easily. In an unknown location, one of Heath's minions knelt in a hoodie cloak, reporting that Heath had fallen. An unknown figure responded, noting that the magic stone was now in the hands of the Black Bulls. They expressed confidence in their plans for their lord's revival. Back with Izuku, a little boy stood on a cliff, mourning his grandfather's death. His little sister, worried about him, urged him to go home. Suddenly, Izuku shouted in surprise as the bird began plucking at his hair. Noelle, wanting to care for the cute bird, joined him. The little girl explained that the villagers had told her how their grandfather had stood up to their enemies, and she admired him. The boy, lost in thought about his grandfather, recalled how he had once returned home proudly, sharing a story about winning a bet from someone in the Magic Knights. He expressed regret for not trying harder when he was younger. Wiping his tears, he asked Izuku if someone from the slums like him could become a Magic Knight. Izuku smiled, seeing a reflection of his younger self in the boy, and encouraged him, saying that if he didn't give up and kept training, he could achieve his dreams. He assured the boy that when he became the Wizard King, he would be waiting for him. The boy smiled back, feeling hopeful. Above them, a man with a flowing cape observed Izuku and Noelle running away. The current Wizard King, 𝐿_𝐴𝐵, smiled, intrigued by the interesting child he had just witnessed. The gang finally arrived back at their base. The wounds were healing at a slow but steady pace, and they weren't severe enough to prevent Izuku and Magna from walking. Yami, with a cackle, looked at the bandages on them and found it amusing. He praised them for their efforts, saying they had done well despite the rough encounter. Izuku blushed at the compliment while Magna enthusiastically agreed, thanking Captain Yami for his kind words. Vanessa joined the conversation, sharing details about the magical forensic squad's investigation into the belongings left by a criminal. Unfortunately, they had found no useful information, only an expensive pocket watch and evidence of the criminal's extremist ties to royalty. She then noticed a small bird perched on Izuku's forehead and commented on its cuteness. Izuku shrugged, explaining that the bird followed him everywhere. Yami then revealed a golden star he was holding, announcing that the Wizard King had approved of their actions and blessed them with a star. Magna shouted in excitement, and Izuku, curious, asked what the star meant. Yami explained that the number of stars represented honor among the Magic Knights, and they had been competing for a long time. He mentioned that the top-ranking group, 𝐿_𝐴𝐵, had 70 stars. Izuku gulped, realizing they were significantly behind with -30 stars. Yami presented a bag filled with money, informing Izuku that it was his pay for the month. The next day, in the depths of the woods, a traveler stumbled upon a ruined dungeon, his surprise evident. Back at the base, several days had passed since Izuku's first mission. Yami ensured that Izuku continued his recovery training while honing his sword skills. Noticing Izuku's progress, Yami announced that it was time for another mission. He shared that a new dungeon had been discovered, prompting excitement from the group. Luck shouted in enthusiasm, while Izuku asked if the dungeon contained ancient artifacts like gold or emeralds. Magna confirmed that it was indeed a place filled with ancient magic and important magical items. Izuku expressed his amazement, but Vanessa warned of the dangers within the dungeon, including magic traps that could be deadly. She explained that the magic knights were tasked with investigating the dungeon to prevent the items from falling into the wrong hands. Yami added that the dungeon was located near an enemy kingdom, making their mission even more critical. He recounted tales of kingdoms formed from treasures found in dungeons and mentioned a legend of someone who gained immense power from one. Izuku, eager to join the mission, bowed and requested permission from Yami. Yami handed him a paper, revealing that the Wizard King himself had chosen Izuku for this task. Overwhelmed with excitement, Izuku exclaimed in disbelief. Magna congratulated him, while Yami casually remarked on the king's peculiar nature. Vanessa expressed concern for Noelle, who was also important to the mission. Yami acknowledged that Luck's sensory magic would be beneficial, though he had reservations about Luck's personality. With the team assembled, Izuku, Noelle, and Luck set off toward the dungeon. As they walked, Izuku and Noelle debated names for the bird that had joined them. Noelle insisted that every pet needed a name, suggesting something elaborate, while Izuku thought a simpler name would be better. Luck chimed in with a suggestion that the bird seemed to like, and they continued deeper into the dungeon. As they ventured further, the darkness enveloped them, and Izuku accidentally stepped on Noelle's foot, prompting an apology. Eventually, Luck pushed open a wall, revealing a stunning maze filled with waterfalls. Izuku marveled at the beauty of the place, but Luck sensed something unusual about the magic in the area. He noted that the dungeon was brimming with mana, feeling its presence more intensely than ever before. He explained that it seemed to be manipulating the environment around them, indicating a powerful force at work. Izuku listened in awe, while Noelle asked if he could sense the mana as well. Izuku admitted he had done some research on magic spells and mana in his youth, but he was still learning about its intricacies. Izuku had always been fascinated by magic since he was a child. He even created an entire journal detailing how to transform magic spells into techniques. He explained that mana was the energy present in the world and within people, and by harnessing this energy, one could wield magic. Noelle expressed her surprise at his knowledge, especially since he didn't possess any magic himself. As Izuku nervously rubbed his neck, he stepped back, unaware that he had triggered a magic trap. Suddenly, a giant boulder came hurtling toward him. Reacting quickly, he drew his sword and sliced the boulder in half, letting out a sigh of relief. Noelle cautioned them to be careful, but Luck, noticing something, decided to play a prank on Izuku. He pointed at another trap that was not clearly visible and pushed Izuku into it. Izuku looked up just in time to see another boulder and managed to cut it in half once more. Luck laughed, finding the situation amusing, while Noelle scolded them for goofing off during such a serious moment. She complimented Izuku on his anti-magic sword, suggesting that it was the reason the Magic Emperor had entrusted him with this mission. Luck expressed his longing to fight Izuku in a few years. Suddenly, Luck sensed another strong presence of mana. With a smile, he leaped into the air, calling upon his grimoire to equip himself with magical boots. He informed the others that something important had come up and that they would have to handle clearing the dungeon on their own before zigzagging away into the maze. Izuku admired Luck's magic, while Noelle pointed out that he and Luck shared a similar voice. Izuku was surprised by this observation, but Noelle dismissed it, feeling a bit flustered as they were now alone. Just then, Izuku shouted a warning as multiple wires shot toward Noelle from behind. He quickly drew his sword and slashed the wires apart, saving her. Grateful, Noelle thanked him, but Izuku's attention was drawn to a giant magic plant that had opened a hole. The plant began to ensnare Noelle, and before Izuku could intervene, it wrapped around his arm, disarming him. As the plant lifted him off the ground, he felt a surge of panic. An explosion erupted, sending shockwaves through the area and causing the plant to burst apart into numerous pieces. The remnants fell to the ground, lifeless, allowing Izuku and Noelle to escape. Coughing and waving away the smoke, Izuku was startled when Katsuki appeared with a grin, accompanied by two others. At the Golden Dawn headquarters, a soldier approached Captain Vengeance, questioning why a rookie like 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 had been assigned to such an important mission. Vengeance, with a calm yet intimidating demeanor, asked if the soldier trusted him. The soldier, now nervous, pledged his loyalty, expressing his willingness to risk his life. Vengeance smiled at the man's dedication and hoped that he would extend that trust to 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, believing that he would grow stronger as a member of the Golden Dawn. Back with the rookies, Izuku and 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 exchanged glances, having not seen each other in a while. Both were eager to see how much they had improved. Izuku began to speak, but 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 interrupted, shaking him vigorously and expressing his frustration at Izuku's perceived lack of progress. Izuku protested, explaining that he had simply been caught off guard, but 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 dismissed his excuse. Noelle, observing the interaction, was taken aback by 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's temper and wondered how Izuku could know someone so hot-headed. A member of the Golden Dawn named Klaus intervened, reprimanding 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 for his behavior and reminding him that they were part of a prestigious squad. Mimosa, a friendly female member, greeted Noelle and inquired about her well-being since their last meeting. Izuku, still being shaken by 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, was surprised to learn that Noelle knew Mimosa. Noelle explained that she had a complicated relationship with her, while Mimosa shared that her squad was supportive and helped her control her abilities, even mentioning 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's assistance. Izuku glanced at 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, who looked away, slightly embarrassed. Mimosa then mentioned a recent mission where her squad had been recognized by the Emperor and awarded a star. Izuku smiled, recalling that his own squad had received a star as well. However, Klaus scoffed at the idea of a rookie like Izuku being awarded so easily and questioned the legitimacy of their mission. Izuku defended himself, insisting that they had been assigned by the Wizard King. Klaus continued to doubt their credibility, hinting at a rivalry between the squads. Where is the third guy? They hoped he hadn't ditched them and run home alone, or worse, fallen victim to a trap nearby. Meanwhile, Luck propelled himself at lightning speed, kicking down a wall with his enchanted boots. He zigzagged across the walls, following his mana senses, eager to confront whatever powerful opponent awaited him. Excitement danced in his eyes as he thought about the challenge ahead. Back with Izuku, he and Noelle exchanged worried glances about Luck's safety. Izuku clenched his fists, feeling frustrated. He couldn't believe how the Black Bulls had treated their comrades. He stepped forward, determined to take action. He declared that nobody disrespected his friends and that they would raid the place to find all the treasure before the Golden Dawn could. Klaus adjusted his glasses, his body glowing with golden light as he accepted the challenge. He was ready to show the difference between first and last place. Mimosa, with a cheerful tone, summoned a plant that displayed the entire map of the dungeon, revealing her understanding of its structure. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 growled, reluctant to take orders, but he unleashed his grimoire, creating a giant cloud that lifted him and his companions into the air above Izuku and Noelle. Noelle marveled at 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's strength, while Izuku felt a surge of determination, vowing not to fall behind. Izuku and Noelle faced a dilemma. They couldn't use exploring-type magic, leaving them feeling lost. Izuku suggested they follow Luck's path, confident they could regroup and devise a plan. Noelle protested, worried Luck might have gone elsewhere, but Izuku insisted they would explore every inch of the dungeon. Nero, the bird perched on Izuku's head, took flight, leading them toward a tunnel above. Meanwhile, within the Golden Dawn, one member scoffed at the Black Bulls, confident they wouldn't succeed. Mimosa expressed her concern about the lack of mana in one of their members, questioning the captain's decision to bring him along. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, overhearing, warned not to underestimate anyone. At the Wizard King's palace, a soldier reported to Julius about the Black Bulls and Golden Dawn investigating the dungeon. He also mentioned the invasion by the wizard army from the Diamond Kingdom, which posed a significant threat if they acquired the ancient magic hidden within. Julius, recalling his past encounters with the Hell Lotus, remained optimistic about the strength of the Magic Knights. Back with Luck, he held an enemy member in his grasp, noting their weakness. He released the man, feeling slightly bored. An unknown figure in a hoodie appeared, expressing frustration at Luck's interference but intrigued by his abilities. They exchanged names, with Luck introducing himself and the mysterious figure revealing he was Dabi. The two faced off amidst the ruins of the dungeon. 𝐬𝐵 acknowledged 𝐿𝐼's strength, impressed by his quick defeat of their foes. 𝐿𝐼, excited by the challenge, prepared for a fight. 𝐬𝐵, showcasing his own power, unleashed a wave of blue fire, forcing 𝐿𝐼 to dodge and rethink his strategy. As the battle intensified, 𝐿𝐼 launched himself at 𝐬𝐵, creating an explosion that shook the room. 𝐬𝐵 countered with his own fiery attack, demonstrating his prowess. 𝐿𝐼, undeterred, recovered quickly, eager for the thrill of the fight. The two exchanged blows, each showcasing their unique abilities, as the clash between lightning and fire lit up the dungeon. He laughed as he wiped the remnants from his mouth, noting how much more powerful the fire was compared to his previous encounters. 𝐿𝐼 chuckled as 𝐬𝐵 landed nearby, confusion evident on his face. 𝐬𝐵 groaned, unleashing a torrent of flames toward 𝐿𝐼. The lightning magic user skillfully dodged the explosive bursts, weaving left and right before charging at 𝐬𝐵. Just in time, 𝐬𝐵 evaded a punch that narrowly missed his forehead. In an instant, 𝐿𝐼 delivered a left hook that sent 𝐬𝐵 flying. Not wanting 𝐬𝐵 to recover, 𝐿𝐼 launched himself from the ground, determined to keep the pressure on. 𝐬𝐵, however, was not without defenses. A blue fire shield erupted around him, absorbing 𝐿𝐼's relentless attacks. 𝐬𝐵 smirked, flipping through the pages of his grimoire as the shield began to crack under the strain. He muttered to himself, searching for a powerful spell, feeling the heat of the moment. Finally, he found what he needed. The flames around him expanded, sending a wave of fiery slashes toward 𝐿𝐼, knocking him back several meters. 𝐬𝐵 grimaced, feeling the toll the fire was taking on his own body. He realized he had to rely on basic fire magic to avoid pushing himself too far. Meanwhile, Izuku and Noelle raced through the maze, feeling a strong tremor shake the ground beneath them. Noelle expressed her concern, and Izuku confirmed that they needed to catch up to their friends quickly. If 𝐿𝐼 or Katsuki were in danger, they had to provide backup. In another part of the maze, Katsuki sensed a significant surge of mana, feeling the overwhelming power radiating from it. Mimosa, studying the map, noted that they were close to their destination. They soon arrived at a massive golden door, which left Mimosa in awe. Katsuki, however, was frustrated, demanding to know how to enter. Just then, crystal spikes erupted from the ground, staggering Mimosa. Katsuki and Klaus rushed to her side, alarmed by her injuries. As Klaus checked on her, Katsuki noticed a figure approaching, a man named Mars, who bore a crystal on his forehead and glared at them. Back with 𝐿𝐼, 𝐬𝐵 groaned, feeling the strain of their battle. He acknowledged that it had been fun but decided it was time to leave. 𝐿𝐼, however, was not finished. A massive blue aura erupted around him, brimming with mana and electricity. The atmosphere around them shifted as his arms became enveloped in a lightning cloak, and a blue scar appeared on his neck, his eyes glowing with immense power. He unleashed a powerful attack, sending 𝐬𝐵 crashing into the wall. 𝐬𝐵 struggled to regain his footing, realizing he was running low on mana. 𝐿𝐼 laughed, feeling victorious. 𝐬𝐵, gritting his teeth, summoned multiple fireballs aimed at 𝐿𝐼. The two clashed, their attacks creating a series of explosions that shook the tunnel. 𝐿𝐼 executed a spinning kick that connected with 𝐬𝐵's head, followed by a barrage of lightning strikes that caused a massive explosion, sending 𝐬𝐵 underwater. With a surge of energy, 𝐿𝐼 gathered a powerful ball of light in his palm, unleashing it into the water where 𝐬𝐵 floated. The resulting explosion created a massive rift in the air, sending ripples throughout the dungeon and causing the walls to tremble. Meanwhile, Katsuki and Klaus faced off against Mars, who demanded they move aside. Katsuki, determined to stand his ground, summoned his grimoire, glowing with yellow energy. Mars retaliated by conjuring a giant crystal pillar aimed at Katsuki. Dodging the attack, Katsuki unleashed a powerful explosion, shattering the crystal. As Mars summoned another attack, Katsuki prepared his own, forming a massive fist of energy that slammed into Mars' defenses. Katsuki landed and unleashed a powerful attack, sending explosive projectiles toward Mars. The blasts surged through the air as Mars leaped high, kicking off the ground. Katsuki gritted his teeth and shouted, preparing another strike. He aimed directly at Mars, but the man dodged to the left, causing 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's attack to slam into the ground instead. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 roared, determined to keep fighting as the walls around Mars began to melt, transforming into lava before erupting into a massive explosion that sent Mars crashing to the other side of the room. Klaus watched the scene unfold, realizing the strength of 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's attacks, even without his tome. He thought to himself that 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 had landed a clean hit, yet Mars seemed unfazed. Klaus urged 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 to retrieve the relic while he held Mars off, but 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 vehemently refused, insisting that he would take on the challenge himself. The tension escalated as they argued, each trying to convince the other to take action. Klaus, frustrated, reminded 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 of their duty to their kingdom, while 𝐀𝐮𝐭o𝐡𝐨𝐫, feeling betrayed, punched Klaus in the face, knocking his glasses to the ground. Klaus fell hard, his head hitting the concrete floor. Despite the pain, he resolved that they were in this together and would not abandon each other. 𝐀𝐮𝐭o𝐡𝐨𝐫 grinned, acknowledging Klaus's determination. As the smoke cleared, they saw Mars emerging, his right side severely damaged from the explosion. He pointed at 𝐀𝐮𝐭o𝐡𝐨𝐫, recognizing him as the strongest opponent, and vowed to eliminate him first. 𝐀𝐮𝐭o𝐡𝐨𝐫, undeterred, prepared for the fight ahead. Meanwhile, Izuku and Noelle raced down a tunnel, drawn by the sound of the explosion. They needed to find their teammates. Izuku spotted a massive hole in the ground, littered with boulders, and they both jumped down to investigate. As they cleared the rubble, Izuku found a strand of 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 hair and called out to him. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 groaned, slowly regaining consciousness. He recalled a fleeting vision of Yami before focusing on Izuku and Noelle. They were relieved to see him alive, but 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 explained that he had fought a powerful opponent and felt drained. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴's expression shifted as he sensed another strong mana signature nearby, one even more formidable than the last. Izuku's eyes widened with excitement, while Noelle expressed disbelief at 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴's eagerness to fight again despite his exhaustion. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 questioned why they had saved him, feeling like a burden. Noelle reminded him that they were teammates and friends, and Izuku echoed her sentiment, emphasizing the bond they shared. This realization sparked a new determination in 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴, inspiring him to fight not just for himself but for his friends. They decided to catch up with the others, knowing that the presence of a stronger opponent posed a significant threat. Izuku offered to carry 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 on his back, assuring him that they would handle everything while he regained his strength. As they ran toward 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 felt a sense of familiarity with Izuku, reminiscent of Captain Yami. He appreciated the support and encouragement from his friends. Back with 𝐀𝐮𝐭o𝐡𝐨𝐫, he declared that they would face the challenge together, ready to unleash their full potential against their formidable foe. A massive yellow grenade formed behind 𝐀𝐮𝐭o𝐡𝐨𝐫, unleashing a barrage of explosive energy toward Mars. Klaus's eyes widened in disbelief as he realized the extent of 𝐀𝐮𝐭o𝐡𝐨𝐫's hidden power. The temperature around him rose, and Mars retaliated with layers of crystal attacks aimed directly at 𝐀𝐮𝐭o𝐡𝐨𝐫. In response, 𝐀𝐮𝐭o𝐡𝐨𝐫 tore apart a piece of his avatar and slammed it onto the ground, creating a tremendous explosion that shattered the crystals. In an instant he was face to face with Mars, their fists colliding with a force that created a crater beneath them. But then, Mars vanished from his sight, and 𝐀𝐮𝐭o𝐡𝐨𝐫's eyes darted to the left just in time to see Mars above him, moving with incredible speed. 𝐀𝐮𝐭o𝐡𝐨𝐫 was caught off guard by a powerful dropkick that sent him crashing to the ground. As he struggled to recover, multiple layers of crystal shards pierced his body, causing him overwhelming pain. Mars summoned a giant blade, towering ominously above him, declaring his intent to finish the fight. 𝐀𝐮𝐭o𝐡𝐨𝐫, breathing heavily and clutching his arm, felt a surge of determination. He recalled the rumors about the Diamond Kingdom's cruel practices of enhancing young mages' powers through brutal competitions. He refused to accept such injustice. Klaus summoned a massive lance, charging at Mars with the intent to pierce him. But Mars quickly encased himself in crystal armor, shattering Klaus's attack. Mars retaliated, landing a powerful punch to Klaus's stomach that sent him flying. 𝐀𝐮𝐭o𝐡𝐨𝐫 looked up just in time to see the giant sword descending toward him. With sparks erupting from his palms, he launched himself backward, narrowly avoiding the blade that tore through the ground where he had just stood. 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 unleashed a powerful blast of energy, aiming directly at Mars, but Mars countered by encasing himself in jewels and launching a barrage of shards that struck 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨 repeatedly. Despite the pain, 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨 refused to back down, summoning even more explosions. As the giant sword lifted again, poised to strike, Klaus shouted 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨's name in warning. But 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨 was resolute, refusing to give in. Just then, Izuku arrived, wielding a sword and cutting through the giant blade with a swift motion. He stood beside 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨, ready to fight. Izuku took a battle stance, determined not to let go of his weapon. Klaus was taken aback, unable to comprehend how Izuku had managed to shatter the sword so effortlessly. Luck joined them, laughing as he prepared to face Mars alongside his friends. 𝐴𝐿 approached Klaus, expressing her regret for her earlier actions. She opened her grimoire, vowing to protect him. Meanwhile, Izuku confronted Mars, demanding to know if they were responsible for attacking the Golden Dawn. Mars remained silent, summoning a clone of himself and declaring his intent to unleash an army of crystal dolls. Klaus was shocked at the sheer number of dolls Mars created simultaneously. Mars proclaimed that weaklings had to perish in battle, as he was born to destroy them. Izuku, 𝐾𝐿𝐴, and Luck fought fiercely against the minions. Izuku sliced through the puppets, while 𝐾𝐿𝐴 unleashed a series of explosions, and Luck delivered powerful kicks and punches. As the battle intensified, Izuku found himself facing a giant crystal sword. With a swift motion, he slashed it in half, but the shards quickly trapped him. Just then, Mars landed a blow that broke Izuku's nose. 𝐾𝐿𝐴 retaliated, but Mars evaded and launched 𝐾𝐿𝐴 into the dungeon's ceiling, summoning pillars of crystal that crashed down around them. Izuku blasted off the wall, ready to join the fight again. Luck zoomed in to assist, delivering a flurry of punches to Mars. But just as they gained the upper hand, one of the statues erupted from the ground, striking Luck in the face. Izuku shouted in alarm, but was quickly backhanded by Mars, sending him flying. Determined, Izuku flipped back to his feet and charged at Mars, dodging a giant crystal pillar and slashing through the armor surrounding Mars. The knights watched in disbelief, astonished by Izuku's tenacity. Klaus shouted in frustration, unable to comprehend how someone with so little magic could pose such a threat. 𝐴𝐿 interrupted, urging him to remain silent. Izuku had the power to nullify magic. Klaus muttered about how Izuku was fortunate to be born under the right star. He urged 𝐴𝐿 to see for herself whether Izuku's abilities were merely luck. Izuku breathed heavily as he checked the water where Mars had landed, determined that Mars couldn't be finished yet. If they had managed to hold off 𝐾𝐮𝐿, then one attack wouldn't be enough. Suddenly, crystals emerged from the ground, zooming toward Izuku as a wave loomed over him. Taking a deep breath, he felt the air flow around him. With a burst of strength, he slashed through the crystals, but his eyes widened as a giant crystal punch slammed into him. 𝐾𝐿𝐴 shouted in concern as Izuku coughed, struggling to breathe. He managed to slow the impact of Mars' punch with the back of his anti-magic sword. Mars loomed over him, demanding to know who he was. Izuku, breathing heavily, stood up and declared that he was the guy born with no magic power at all. Klaus was astonished, realizing that Izuku had indeed gotten lucky. Izuku then proclaimed his aspiration to become the Wizard King, vowing to protect those he cared about with a smile on his face. Mars roared in anger, declaring his intent to destroy everything, and Izuku shouted back that he would stop him. As he launched himself at Mars, he dodged a giant fist and rolled backward, sending multiple slashes toward Mars' arm. But then a spiky arm backhanded him, causing him to crash into a wall. Coughing heavily, Izuku used his sword to crack the wall above him, leveraging it to dodge another fist. He propelled himself toward Mars, slashing through the arms and roaring as his blade struck Mars' chest, shattering the diamond and sending Mars flying. With Mars down, his crystal minions began to crack and break apart. As the battle concluded, Mars was fully restrained by magic. 𝐴𝐿 asked Mimosa if she was alright to move, to which Mimosa responded that she had mostly recovered. Klaus commented on the situation, and Izuku sighed at the sight of his ripped hoodie, knowing Vanessa would mend it later. He munched on medical leaves for recovery, surprised by their pleasant taste. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 interrupted Klaus, asserting that they had won the fight and deserved to enter the trove. He then chastised Izuku for his gratitude, insisting that he should just get inside. Izuku smiled, brushing off 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴's irritation, while Noelle pouted at their banter, feeling conflicted about the nicknames. With Klaus by his side, Izuku wondered how to get inside. Luck approached the door, noting that it was made with magic and suggested Izuku slice through it. Izuku nodded and slashed at the door, which began to decay, revealing a room filled with jewels and gems. Excited, he ran ahead with Luck following closely. Luck, wielding his diamond sword, mimicked Izuku's earlier declaration about becoming the Wizard King. Klaus adjusted his glasses, warning everyone to be cautious with the treasures, as they could be powerful magical tools. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 noticed a giant plate with a scroll swirling with magic and approached it, puzzled by the unfamiliar words. Suddenly, the door crashed open, and Mars reappeared, surrounded by a flame-like aura, declaring his recovery. Noelle attempted to counter Mars' flames, but he struck her, causing her to fall. Mimosa screamed in horror, and Izuku, filled with rage, kicked off the ground to confront Mars. He realized Mars had adapted his fighting style, using faster magic. As blades surrounded Mars, Izuku slashed through them, but the remaining swords flew at him, causing him to stagger back, blood spilling from his wounds. Determined, Izuku thought about how to end the fight quickly to protect Noelle and the others. Just then, he noticed Nero flying past him and landing on something. The bird revealed a brand new sword, the Demon Dweller sword. Izuku groaned as he stood up, determined to use everything that might be useful to him. He reached for the sword, calling out to Noelle. Mimosa rushed to Noelle's side, kneeling down to assess the wound in her heart. She thought to herself that her healing magic wouldn't work quickly enough. With a surge of determination, she activated her plant recovery form, and plants erupted from the ground, slowly mending Noelle's wounds. Mars, filled with arrogance, declared that he was the only one who mattered, boasting about his vast mana and dismissing anyone he deemed weak. He unleashed a barrage of blades aimed at Mimosa, intent on ending her life. Just in time, Izuku dashed in front of her, shattering the blades into fragments. The confrontation intensified as Izuku, wielding his newly enhanced sword, executed rapid slashes that dismantled Mars's attacks. He ducked under a blade, slicing through each one in succession before leaping toward Mars. The villain retaliated with a massive crystal fist, but Izuku gritted his teeth and slid beneath it, flipping upward to close the distance. However, Mars's arm caught his leg, slamming him to the ground and sending him crashing against the ceiling, the impact knocking the air from his lungs. As Izuku struggled to regain his breath, he saw another fist hurtling toward him. He narrowly dodged the attack only to be bombarded by shards. He cut through them with precision, maintaining his speed, and delivered a final kick. Yet, a crystal arm deflected his sword, sending him sliding back to where Mimosa and Noelle were. Breathing heavily, Izuku realized he could fend off Mars's attacks, but as long as Mars could heal himself, his sword wouldn't be enough to finish him off. Noelle, muttering in concern, urged him to take action. Izuku smiled, relieved to see his friend was okay, and felt a surge of power course through him as his sword glowed with intense red energy, adorned with golden flames. With renewed determination, he shouted that he would eliminate Mars. As he pulled back his sword, he declared his intent to end the fight. A massive red slash erupted from his weapon, slicing through the air and heading straight for Mars. To Izuku's astonishment, the blade pierced through Mars's defenses. The villain struggled to resist, but the attack proved too powerful, culminating in a tremendous explosion that sent him crashing against the wall. Breathing but smiling, Izuku felt a sharp pain in his abdomen and looked down to see a blade embedded deep within him. Noelle gasped in worry as Izuku fell to the ground. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴, witnessing the scene, shouted Izuku's name in desperation. Mars loomed over Izuku's weakened form, taunting him about his perceived softness and lack of resolve to take a life. Just then, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 broke free from the crystal restraints and charged toward Mars, vowing not to let Izuku die. Suddenly, a fairy appeared, her red dress tattered and her ash-blonde hair flowing. She raised her palm, and a massive explosion erupted from her hand, obliterating Mars's sword and armor. As Mars cried out in pain, he was propelled into the wall, creating a large crater. 𝐻𝐿, astonished, realized the fairy's explosion had vaporized everything around them. With Mars's crystal armor beginning to decay, 𝐻𝐿 quickly retrieved his spellbook, noticing new spells inscribed within. Meanwhile, Izuku's sword began to levitate, shaking before it was absorbed into his grimoire. 𝗏𝐿 urged Mimosa to heal Izuku, who was struggling to speak. Despite her urgency, Izuku managed to express a plea for Mimosa to save Mars, pointing weakly at the fallen enemy. Mimosa was taken aback, while 𝐀𝐮 protested, reminding them that Mars was their enemy. Izuku insisted that they had come to explore the dungeon, not to kill. 𝐿𝐿, inspired by Izuku's words, decided to act. He launched himself toward Mars, determined to save him, believing that if he did, he could bring happiness to Izuku in return for the joy Izuku had given him. As 𝐿𝐿 closed in, a giant boulder collapsed nearby, sending shockwaves that knocked him backward. The urgency of the situation escalated as everyone shouted for 𝐿𝐿 to escape. It wasn't worth it, 𝗏𝐿 thought as she shouted for 𝐿𝐿, who snarled and gritted his teeth, insisting it wasn't time yet. The fairy on 𝐻𝐿's shoulder clicked her tongue in frustration before zipping toward 𝐿𝐿, lightly grabbing his shoulder and lifting him effortlessly before returning him to the cloud. 𝐿𝐿 clenched his teeth, frustrated by his lack of mana. 𝗏𝐿 called out to him, asking where they should go. He snapped out of his thoughts and shouted for 𝐻𝐿 to fly to the right. As they did, their eyes widened at the sight of two large cubes ready to crash down on them. 𝐀𝐮 roared, pulling out his weapon, transforming it into a drill. 𝐿𝐿 shouted, unleashing two bolts of lightning. Their combined attacks shattered the cubes into pieces. 𝐀𝐮 thought of Izuku, vowing to ensure his safety. Mimosa looked down, swallowing hard, pleading for Izuku to make it out. Outside, the dungeon began to collapse, bricks and walls tumbling down like a ruined city of giant building blocks. Just when it seemed the team might not survive, a drill pierced through the ground, and they emerged from the rubble, alive. They cheered in triumph, and 𝐻𝐿 quickly took charge, urging 𝐿𝐿 to bring Izuku to safety. 𝐿𝐿 grabbed Izuku by his legs and arms, rushing him to a safe, flat area where he could rest. He gently laid Izuku on the ground and looked down at him, calling for extra healing. Mimosa knelt beside Izuku, her plants beginning to regrow around her and spread across his body. She hoped it would be enough, feeling a blush creep onto her cheeks as she noticed his features up close. Izuku groaned softly, stirring as he opened his eyes. The others expressed their relief, urging him to get up. Mimosa mentioned her victory over the villain, while 𝐻𝐿 bluntly stated he didn't owe anyone favors. 𝗏𝐿 and Mimosa shouted at him for his timing, but 𝐀𝐮 spoke up, noticing Izuku's trembling form. Izuku lunged at 𝐻𝐿 and 𝐿𝐿, hugging them tightly and apologizing for doubting them. 𝐻𝐿 grumbled about the awkwardness, while Izuku winced at the pain from his wounds. Meanwhile, in another part of the ruins, rugged bricks shifted as a hand burst through the rubble. 𝐷𝐵 emerged, coughing and breathing heavily, blood trickling from his mouth. He reflected on how he had narrowly escaped 𝐿𝐿's attack, realizing he had underestimated the boy's strength. As he pushed Mars out from under the debris, Mars woke up, confused. 𝐷𝐵 told him to calm down, explaining he had saved him and deserved a thank you. Mars gazed at the appealing landscape before him, recalling memories of the outside world. 𝐷𝐵 urged him to take it all in, but as he turned to leave, Mars stopped him, asking why he had saved him. 𝐷𝐵 shrugged, admitting he wanted to see if he still had some humanity left. Mars expressed his gratitude, but 𝐷𝐵 dismissed it, walking away. Mars questioned where 𝐷𝐵 was headed, and 𝐷𝐵, annoyed, asked why he cared. Mars revealed his longing to return to humanity, prompting 𝐷𝐵 to share his quest for a sword that could nullify magic. Mars's eyes widened as he remembered the green-haired boy he had fought, realizing 𝐷𝐵 was searching for Izuku. He asked if 𝐷𝐵 intended to kill him, but 𝐷𝐵 feigned ignorance, declaring his true target was one of the Clover Knights. Mars brushed himself off, insisting it was now Dabi's turn to share his plans. He resolved to search for his childhood friend. Dabi wanted to ensure she was okay. He shrugged and said he would see her later, waving as he walked deeper into the woods, leaving the dungeon behind. Suddenly, a loud clap echoed through the air, causing Dabi to snap his head back, gritting his teeth as he searched for the source of the noise. He shouted out, demanding to know where the voice was coming from. A tall man emerged, dressed in a black cloak with a white fluffy coat draped over his shoulders, complemented by a fitted suit and polished boots. His striking white hair and crimson eyes caught Dabi's attention. The man praised Dabi for his control over his magic, stating that someone with his power met his standards. Dabi, on edge, demanded to know who he was. The man spread his arms wide, introducing himself as Zen Shigaraki, someone known by many names throughout the Clover Kingdom, even recognized by the great Wizard King. Dabi's eyes widened in shock. This man knew about the Wizard King. Zen continued, revealing that he had lived for many years and had witnessed the various aspects of the magical world, including the knights who inhabited it. He suggested that Dabi was one of the unfortunate results of the mistakes made in their society. Dabi clenched his teeth, furious at how much Zen seemed to know about him. Zen offered to share information about the world, but only if Dabi agreed to join him. Dabi hesitated, unsure of how to trust someone he didn't even know. Zen giggled, acknowledging his rudeness and formally introducing himself. Meanwhile, the Black Bulls and the Golden Dawns had finally exited the dungeon and were heading back to their respective hideouts. Luck was carrying Izuku on his back, while Noel followed closely behind. Izuku, smiling slightly, insisted he could walk on his own, but Luck laughed, saying he enjoyed the opportunity to work on his strength. Noel chimed in, teasing Luck about his eagerness to help Izuku, but she quickly became flustered when she accidentally mentioned a nickname for Izuku. As Noel defended herself, insisting it was just a nickname, she became increasingly agitated, causing both Izuku and Luck to lean back in surprise. Luck then shifted the conversation to something that had been weighing on him. He expressed regret for not being able to save someone during their time in the dungeon. Izuku, reflecting on the situation, reassured Luck that he had done his best, and that was all anyone could ask for. Luck's spirits lifted at Izuku's kind words, and he ran off, excitedly declaring they needed to return to the base for healing and training. A couple of weeks later, Izuku finally felt recovered after a long rest. He was thrilled to see a feast laid out before him, exclaiming his excitement. Charmy, in her usual laid-back manner, encouraged him to enjoy the food but reminded him to save some for her. Yami approached, surprised to see Izuku awake and in better shape. He instructed Izuku to report to the Magic Knights, prompting a flurry of reactions from the others. Luck, eager for a challenge, expressed his longing to fight the stronger members at headquarters, but Izuku cautioned him against it. Yami confirmed that Luck would be on a mission with Magna, which thrilled Luck. Charmy, dreaming of delicious food, raised her hand to join, but Yami quickly dismissed her, pointing out her tendency to eat rather than train. Izuku then boldly asked Yami if they could arrange for opponents for sword training. The room fell silent, and the others gasped at his audacity. Magna thought to himself that asking Yami for favors was a risky move, but Yami, surprisingly, acknowledged Izuku's request, indicating he understood the young man's struggles with his sword skills. Magna thought about how he initially believed that Yami treated everyone the same way. He recalled his first battle against the villain in the dungeon, where he managed to take him down twice. However, the villain kept getting back up, transforming into a new form that allowed his blades to move faster than the eye could see. Realizing that his sword was slower, Magna understood he needed a new weapon to counter the villain's abilities. This new sword was extraordinary, capable of unleashing magical slashes effortlessly. He concluded that the sword must possess pure magic, as he himself lacked any magical abilities. He felt his swordsmanship was heavy and slow compared to the others he had fought. Knowing Yami's strength as the captain of the squad, he sought training from him, feeling honored to learn from such a powerful figure. Yami, however, interrupted Magna's thoughts by lifting Izuku into the air, silencing his rambling. Yami's cold tone demanded that Izuku stop muttering. Izuku, startled, quickly apologized, while Magna urged Yami to let him go, explaining that Izuku was new to this. Yami released Izuku and acknowledged his need for help in swinging his sword without relying on other weapons. Izuku eagerly agreed, feeling a surge of hope as Yami accepted the challenge. A few minutes later, Izuku and Noelle arrived at the magnificent castle of Clover. Izuku was awestruck by the towering structure that loomed over the village. He and Noelle walked along the road, marveling at the impressive buildings around them. It was hard to believe that the Wizard King had created such a remarkable home for the people. Izuku exclaimed his disbelief at the size of the houses, while Noelle found herself lost in her thoughts about being alone with Izuku again. As they continued their stroll, Izuku spotted 3 familiar faces ahead. He greeted Katsuki, Mimosa, and Klaus, who rushed over to check on him. Klaus shook Izuku's shoulder, expressing his relief that Izuku was healed. Izuku nodded, sharing that he had rested well and eaten plenty. Katsuki teased him, but Izuku soon turned his attention to Mimosa, thanking her for healing him. Mimosa, flustered, pulled her hands away and looked away, leaving Izuku confused about her reaction. Katsuki chimed in, suggesting that Mimosa was surprised by Izuku's shorter stature. Izuku frowned at Katsuki's comment, while Klaus insisted that Katsuki apologize. Amid the banter, Noelle approached Mimosa, noticing her distress. Mimosa confided in Noelle about her feelings for Izuku, expressing her longing since he saved her. Noelle was taken aback, questioning why Mimosa would like someone like Izuku, who she deemed foolish and awkward. Despite Noelle's protests, Mimosa revealed that she found Izuku's qualities endearing. Noelle struggled to process this revelation, feeling an unexpected surge of emotions. The 2 girls' loud exclamations caught the attention of Izuku and Klaus, who exchanged bewildered glances. Katsuki remarked on the strangeness of girls, while Izuku pondered his own feelings, particularly about Sister Lily, the nun he admired. After some time, they made their way to the king's castle, where the current Wizard King, Julius, greeted the young knights. Klaus showed his respect by kneeling, while Izuku, confused, asked where the Wizard King was. Klaus scolded Izuku for not recognizing Julius as the Wizard King. Izuku was taken aback, bowing repeatedly and frantically apologizing for his earlier comments. He then presented his grimoire, excited to see the Wizard King's signature on it, feeling overwhelmed with gratitude and joy. Klaus tried to calm Izuku down, reminding him to compose himself as they prepared to discuss the matter that brought them to the castle in the first place. Julius admired the grimoire that Katsuki had given him, expressing his excitement about its contents. Katsuki questioned whether Julius could read it, and Julius noted that this magic was likely the most significant discovery from the dungeon. His eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as he asked to see what the magic looked like. Klaus adjusted his glasses, reflecting on the rumors of Julius's intense passion for magic, feeling that the Wizard King's behavior was rather uncharacteristic. Katsuki admitted he had used the magic once but hadn't been able to replicate it since. Julius, with a hint of disappointment, acknowledged the potential of Katsuki's magic, sensing that the boy would bring about change. He encouraged Katsuki, stating that the magic would grow alongside him and eventually become something extraordinary. Izuku, standing nervously, addressed Julius with great respect, prompting the Wizard King to invite him to simply call him Julius. Izuku then revealed some unfamiliar words in his grimoire, which left Julius puzzled. He leaned in closer, trying to decipher the strange writing, but it remained a mystery to him. Izuku then summoned his demon dweller sword, offering it to Julius, who expressed childlike curiosity about the powerful weapon. As Julius held the sword, he was taken aback by its weight, realizing it was absorbing his magic. He returned the sword to Izuku, explaining that it could only be wielded by someone without magic powers. Izuku was surprised by Julius's insight into his lack of magic. Julius quickly shifted the conversation, praising the boys for their efforts in the field and thanking them on behalf of their kingdom. Izuku, feeling a rush of courage, asked Julius what it took to become the Wizard King. Julius's warm smile faded as he emphasized that results were what truly mattered in leadership. He explained that trust is earned through proven achievements, and those who cannot deliver results do not deserve to be at the top. Katsuki clenched his fists, determined, while Izuku nodded in agreement. Julius recognized their potential and announced an upcoming medal presentation, inviting them to participate. As the doors opened, a bright light illuminated the room, revealing the squad members with the most stars. Julius challenged them to prove they could achieve more than these accomplished knights. As the valor ceremony commenced, Izuku felt out of place among the elite knights. Julius excused himself, encouraging everyone to enjoy the event. Klaus sensed the weight of the gazes from the other attendees, while Noelle felt particularly anxious due to the presence of her siblings. Izuku, eager to sample the food, moved through the crowd until he accidentally bumped into a towering figure. The man, Enji Todoroki, introduced himself in a commanding tone, leaving Izuku feeling intimidated. Just then, Mimosa approached Izuku, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, and asked if she could join him. Izuku smiled and offered her some food, happy to share the moment with her. Meanwhile, someone glaring at Izuku muttered under his breath, expressing disdain for him. They questioned why the king would bring someone like Izuku to their gathering and speculated that he had merely gotten lucky in the dungeon fight. The whispers echoed throughout the room, and Izuku, munching on his chicken, wondered why they were so bold. A boy with ash-orange spiky hair boasted about his performance in the last dungeon mission, prompting a dismissive response from the man beside him, who remarked that no one expected anything from Izuku, referring to him derogatorily. Klaus and Mimosa exchanged worried glances at the unfolding scene. Klaus admonished the man for his words, but the man retorted that Klaus was no better for associating with Izuku. He then turned to Mimosa, criticizing her for being injured and retreating during the dungeon mission, calling it pathetic. Mimosa frowned and apologized. Izuku felt anger rising within him and called out to Noelle, who was being confronted by another man. The man mocked her inability to control her magic, and Noelle, feeling cornered, was about to walk away when Izuku stopped her, urging her not to listen to the negativity. Izuku expressed his longing to understand Noelle's pain, vowing to share in her suffering so he could empathize with her better. His determination surprised Noelle, who widened her eyes in disbelief. Ignoring the warnings from Klaus, Izuku confronted 𝐻𝐻𝐿, demanding an apology for Noelle. The room fell silent, tension hanging in the air as everyone awaited 𝐻𝐻𝐿's reaction. 𝐻𝐻𝐿 scoffed at Izuku's audacity and struck him, sending him to the floor. Many thought Izuku would not rise again, but he slowly stood up, bruised yet resolute, reiterating his demand for an apology. 𝐻𝐻𝐿's fury escalated, and he struck Izuku again, sending him crashing into 𝗁𝗱, who was visibly angered by the blood staining his shirt. Izuku continued to endure the blows, determined to stand up for Noelle. As he fought through the pain, Katsuki watched the scene unfold, clenching his fists in frustration, feeling a surge of anger towards 𝐻𝐻𝐿. Despite the blood pouring from his forehead and the bruises on his face, Izuku stood once more, declaring his intent to bear Noelle's pain. He approached 𝐻𝐻𝐿 again, blood dripping from his mouth, and pleaded for an apology for Noelle. Noelle, overwhelmed with emotion, couldn't comprehend why Izuku was putting himself through this for her. 𝐻𝐻𝐿 responded with a series of harsh strikes, pushing Izuku to his limits. As Izuku struggled to rise again, 𝐻𝐻𝐿 taunted him, challenging him to fight. Izuku, gasping for breath, refused to engage in combat, insisting that all he wanted was an apology for Noelle. 𝐻𝐻𝐿's anger flared, and he delivered a powerful kick to Izuku's abdomen, causing him to cry out in pain. Izuku fell to the floor, struggling to catch his breath while 𝐻𝐻𝐿 leaned down to taunt him further, belittling his lack of magic and questioning his worthiness to be among the elite knights. The atmosphere grew heavy with tension as everyone listened to 𝐻𝐻𝐿's words, observing Izuku's battered form. Katsuki's anger intensified, his mana radiating with a heat that altered the room's temperature. Enji noticed the change, realizing the depth of Katsuki's fury. Izuku, despite the pain, absorbed 𝐻𝐻𝐿's insults, reflecting on the struggles he had faced to reach this point. He understood that 𝐻𝐻𝐿 had no idea of the hardships he had endured, the dedication he had shown in mastering his abilities. Izuku's resolve remained unshaken, determined to prove his worth against all odds. Izuku understood that his ideals and self-image were irrelevant. He recognized the type of person he was. He wasn't lucky, he deserved to be here. He was Izuku, the next Wizard King. As he looked up, gritting his teeth, he demanded that 𝐻𝐿 apologize to Noelle. 𝐻𝐿's anger flared, veins bulging on his skin as he muttered under his breath. He seized Izuku's hoodie and struck him repeatedly, causing blood to splatter across his fist. He shouted that Izuku thought he was better than everyone else, accusing him of refusing to use his grimoire because he believed he deserved to be there. 𝐻𝐿's disdain was palpable as he called Izuku a disgrace, a mistake, and questioned what made him think he belonged in their ranks. He kneed Izuku in the gut, causing him to double over before collapsing to the ground. Izuku coughed, still pleading for an apology. 𝐻𝐿 intervened, gripping 𝐻𝐿's fist firmly to stop him. He questioned 𝐻𝐿's shame in bullying someone ranked below him. 𝐻𝐿's irritation was evident as he released 𝐻𝐿's fist and turned to the others, who remained silent, too ashamed to respond. He expressed his astonishment at Izuku's resilience, noting that he had never seen anyone endure so much. A boy with ash-orange hair, who appeared to be Izuku's age, declared that Izuku was now the rival of Leopold Vermilion. As Izuku groaned and coughed, he repeated his plea for an apology. Mimosa and Noelle rushed to Izuku's side, using their healing magic to mend his wounds. A girl with dark skin and puffy black hair laughed, remarking on 𝐻𝐿's behavior towards a child. Ranked below him, 𝐻𝐿 and 𝐻𝐿 stood off against each other, glaring intensely. 𝐻𝐿 asserted that Izuku had earned his place there, regardless of rank or luck, and deserved to be among them. 𝐻𝐿, wiping the blood from his fists, scoffed at 𝐻𝐿's words, dismissing Izuku as insignificant. 𝐻𝐿 observed Izuku struggling to rise, recognizing a boy who endures. The tension in the room escalated as both their mana surged, 𝐻𝐿 summoning a giant fire dragon, while 𝐻𝐿 conjured a massive hawk brimming with water magic. The pressure was overwhelming, causing Klaus to struggle to stand. Just then, a soldier burst into the room, announcing that their kingdom was under attack. An explosion erupted outside, followed by the approach of an army led by a maniacal villain who called for action. 𝐻𝐿 approached Izuku, who was being supported by Noelle and Mimosa. He lifted Izuku gently, brushing his hair back and encouraging him to stand tall, as those who endure are the strongest in the end. Izuku nodded, responding affirmatively. 𝐻𝐿 instructed the girls to finish healing him and to join the battle, emphasizing the need for determination. With that, he vanished. 𝐻𝐿 leaped onto a building to survey the chaos, but before he could act, Katsuki seized his wrist, insisting they had work to do. Katsuki was consumed by his longing for vengeance, ignoring the destruction surrounding them. He flipped through his grimoire, searching for a powerful spell, his eyes burning with intensity as he declared his intent to kill. As explosions rocked the kingdom, chaos intensified. The knights fought valiantly against the invading forces, but the enemy's relentless assault caused further destruction. The main villain's laughter echoed as he commanded the 𝐻𝐿 to wreak havoc, sending them flying through the air and shattering buildings. The knights retaliated, unleashing their magic, but the 𝐻𝐿 pressed on, overpowering them. Meanwhile, the strongest knights gathered in the king's throne room to devise a plan. Sandler manipulated the sand around them, while Klaus adjusted his glasses, questioning the enemy's ability to infiltrate unnoticed. 𝐻𝐿 pondered the implications of such powerful magic and the possibility of a traitor among them. They realized they were facing a formidable foe and needed to confront each enemy strategically. Half of the group decided to split up between the kingdoms to coordinate an attack on their defenses. 𝐻𝐿 laid out the plan as 𝐻𝐿 nodded in agreement. Izuku, struggling with pain, lifted himself from the floor and tried to speak, but a groan escaped him. Noelle shouted at him to stay still, reminding him that he was still recovering. Despite his condition, Izuku insisted that they were in a battle and that the enemy's defenses must be formidable. With only half of the captains present and the Wizard King absent, he felt they needed all the help they could get. Charlotte challenged Izuku, asking if he was underestimating them. He quickly clarified that he wasn't. She reminded him that the captains were ranked as such for a reason, they dedicated their lives to fighting for their kingdom. 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐴N added that anyone who threatened their kingdom would face war. Izuku realized the gravity of the situation. He was already fighting against seasoned warriors, and he felt the pressure to catch up to their level. Leo, full of enthusiasm, declared that he would hold off the enemies as best as he could. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, standing beside Charlotte, remarked on the foolishness of the men. Charlotte sighed in agreement, noting that Leo still had much to learn. 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐴N rallied the Magic Knights, announcing his intention to support Leo in the fight. 𝐀𝐮 created a giant mud avatar to lift herself and Charlotte into the air, declaring their plan to take the defense from the right. 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐴N's determination inspired the knights as they burst from the towers above, ready for battle. Izuku, left behind with Noelle and Mimosa, urged them to move ahead. Despite their hesitation, he insisted that they needed to trust the captains. He emphasized that this was war, and if half of their squad fell, they would be the only line of defense to heal them. After a moment of consideration, Noelle and Mimosa nodded in agreement and rushed out, with Noelle glancing back at Izuku, thanking him for his words, albeit with a hint of frustration. As Izuku leaned back, feeling the ground shake violently, he was suddenly knocked off his feet. He heard a familiar voice and looked under the desk, surprised to see Charmy. Meanwhile, on the right side of the kingdom, Katsuki and 𝗏𝐻𝐿 faced a barrage of gnomes, explosions erupting around them. 𝗏𝐻𝐿, flipping open his grimoire, unleashed a spell that reinforced the ground, creating a powerful slash that cut through a building. Katsuki, determined, retaliated with his explosions, but 𝗏𝐻𝐿 dodged and countered, landing a blow that sent Katsuki crashing through several structures. 𝗏𝐻𝐿, unfazed, prepared to assist the others, but Katsuki quickly closed the distance, launching an explosive attack that sent 𝗏𝐻𝐿 flying. As 𝗏𝐻𝐿 crashed into the ground, Katsuki taunted him, claiming he was underestimating him. 𝗏𝐻𝐿, bloodied but resolute, summoned a new spell, declaring that he needed to defeat Katsuki to reach the final boss. Katsuki laughed, confident in his abilities, and declared himself the final boss. On the left side of the kingdom, 𝐻𝐭𝐻𝐿 soared into the air, using fire magic to propel himself. He unleashed a powerful spell against a Nomu, creating a brilliant flash of light. 𝐶𝐮𝐿𝐼, beside him, used his magic to crush the gnomes, while 𝐻𝐭𝐻𝐿 moved swiftly to evade attacks. 𝐀𝐮, frustrated with 𝐻𝐭𝐻𝐿's lack of faith in her sister Charlotte, defended her, asserting that she could handle anything thrown at her. 𝐻𝐭𝐻𝐿 reluctantly acknowledged her strength as 𝐶𝐮𝐿𝐼 wrapped his magic around a giant Nomu, keeping it at bay. Compared to the other creatures, this one was stronger. 𝐀𝐿 shouted in frustration, questioning what these beings were. She called upon her magic, summoning rocks that formed a cage around the giant Nomu's legs, immobilizing it. 𝐻𝐭𝐻𝐿 quickly flipped through his spellbook until he found the right incantation. With determination, he unleashed a powerful fireball aimed directly at the Nomu, resulting in a brilliant explosion of light that scorched the creature from within. However, as the flames subsided, the Nomu began to regenerate, prompting 𝐻𝐭𝐻𝐿 to shout in alarm about its ability to heal. The Nomu's eyes glowed ominously, and 𝐶𝐿𝐼𝐴N yelled for 𝐻𝐭𝐻𝐿 to get out of the way just as the creature released a massive wave of energy that sliced through nearby buildings. 𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐴N felt a sharp pain as part of his suit was torn away, leaving him reeling from the blow. He thought to himself about the creature's incredible speed as he fell from the sky, while 𝐶𝐿𝐼𝐴N gritted his teeth in disbelief at the Nomu's power. Meanwhile, on the south side of the kingdom, the Knights of the Clover Kingdom formed a protective barrier, chanting their magic to defend against the Nomu's relentless assaults. They urged each other to maintain their strength, but one knight suddenly collapsed, feeling an overwhelming weakness. Another knight scolded him for faltering, only to realize that his mana was being drained by an unseen force. Above them, a woman named 𝐀𝐮 hovered, delighting in the mana she was absorbing. She expressed her excitement over the power she was gathering, but just as she prepared to unleash a devastating attack, a plant intervened, deflecting her magic. It was Charlotte, who had arrived just in time to save the knight. She commanded him to stay focused and defend the kingdom while she confronted 𝐀𝐮. 𝐀𝐮, annoyed, called out to Charlotte, questioning her interference and claiming that the knights were merely a feast for her. Charlotte remained composed, confronting 𝐻𝐿 about her attacks on the kingdom. 𝐻𝐿 giggled, revealing that they were part of the Eye of the Midnight Sun, whose goal was to destroy the Clover Kingdom. Charlotte's eyes widened in realization, contemplating the implications of their intentions. 𝐻𝐿, eager for battle, summoned a massive beam of purple light aimed at Charlotte. The captain rolled away, dodging the explosions that erupted around her, and quickly flipped through her grimoire to find a counterattack. She unleashed her briar magic, creating a garden of plants that spread across the area. 𝐻𝐿 boasted about her ability to absorb magic, but Charlotte seized the moment. Using her briar manipulation, she swapped places with one of the flowers, closing the distance to confront 𝐻𝐿 directly. With a swift kick, Charlotte struck 𝐻𝐿, sending her crashing into a wall. 𝐻𝐿 coughed heavily, glaring at Charlotte with fury, realizing the strength of her opponent. On the right side of the kingdom, a little girl gasped in fear as 𝐻𝐿, a menacing figure, approached her. He asked if she liked the Clover Kingdom, and when she pleaded for him to stop, he revealed his disdain for it. Just as he reached for her, a burst of flames erupted, and Leo appeared, delivering a powerful punch to 𝐻𝐿's cheek and saving the girl. Leo confronted 𝐻𝐿, expressing his outrage at the man's actions. 𝐻𝐿, unfazed, declared his intent to destroy anyone associated with the kingdom. A giant 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿 emerged from the ground beside Leo, who quickly knelt down and instructed the girl to hold on tight. She jumped onto his back just as Leo leaped away, narrowly avoiding the creature's attack. Once safe, Leo set the girl down and prepared to fight the 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿. He opened his grimoire, casting fire magic to unleash a wave of flames across the creature's face. However, as he struck with a fiery punch, he realized the 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿 was incredibly durable. The creature retaliated with a powerful backhand, sending Leo flying across the ground. He knew he had to be cautious. This 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿 was unlike the others, capable of anticipating his movements. 𝐻𝐿 informed Leo that he needed to adapt quickly. Leo erupted from the ground, flames bursting forth as he charged at them. He declared that all he needed to do was defeat the creature before him. 𝐻𝐿 rolled his eyes, expressing his frustration with the Clover Knight's lack of listening. The 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿 swung a punch, but Leo swiftly dodged to the left. He attempted a spinning kick aimed at the 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿's ribs, but it remained unfazed. Leo thought to himself that it was difficult to penetrate the creature's defenses in his current state. He resolved to increase his firepower, determined to break through. With renewed energy, he delivered a powerful kick to the 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿's gut, sending it crashing into a building, which crumbled under the impact. 𝐻𝐿 observed Leo's impressive feat but warned him that he was now wide open. As 𝐻𝐿 charged at him, Leo noticed the sudden movement and stepped back just in time. 𝐻𝐿 grinned and unleashed a magical attack that struck Leo's shoulder, causing him to cry out in pain as he clutched the injury, blood trickling from his mouth. 𝐻𝐿 approached, boasting about his new magic ability and the side effects he was still adjusting to. He revealed his burned arm, emphasizing the sacrifices he was willing to make for his goals. In an instant, the 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿 appeared before Leo and landed a powerful punch to his face, sending him flying through the air and crashing into a nearby shop. 𝐻𝐿 chuckled, feeling confident that he had won, but his attention shifted to a girl who was trying to escape. He threatened her, but Leo, despite his injuries, felt a surge of power within him. His eyes transformed into a piercing yellow with golden highlights, and he prepared to fight back. The 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿 slammed its fist down, but Leo countered with a strike of his own, using his fire magic to create a swirling vortex that engulfed the creature. He propelled the 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿 into the air, engaging in a fierce exchange of blows. Leo gained the upper hand, backhanding the 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿 to the ground, leaving a trail of fiery energy in his wake. However, the 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿 adapted quickly, catching Leo's fist and dislocating it with a swift motion. Leo roared in pain as he was sent sprawling across the field. 𝐻𝐿, breathing heavily, realized that Leo was far more powerful than he had anticipated. He commanded the 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿 to finish Leo off, but the girl pleaded for mercy. The 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿 advanced, ready to strike again, while Leo struggled to see through the blood obscuring his vision. Suddenly, a figure appeared, clad in a black bull's hoodie, with a familiar grimoire glowing behind him. The 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿 raised its fists, but the newcomer swiftly slashed through the air with a sword, severing the 𝗰𝐽𝐻's arm. He landed gracefully, lifting Leo into his arms and assuring him that everything would be all right. Leo's vision was blurry, but he felt a sense of relief as he recognized his savior. Izuku, the Black Bulls member, expressed concern over Leo's injuries. Raids, taken aback, wondered who this new arrival was. Izuku assessed the situation and realized the extent of the damage caused by raids. As Leo muttered a question, Izuku reassured him that he would be okay. However, upon noticing Leo's broken arm, Izuku panicked. Leo, in a groggy tone, instructed him to pop the arm back into place on the count of 3. Izuku agreed, and as they counted, he swiftly pulled Leo's arm back into its socket, causing Leo to cry out in pain. With determination, they prepared to face the challenges ahead together. Izuku stuttered, feeling a surge of nerves as he prepared for the confrontation. Raids couldn't believe the power that wielded the anti-mana blade belonged to someone so timid, though he acknowledged Izuku's speed, which was impressive. Raid thought that this battle might be more challenging than he had anticipated. Izuku leaped from the building, landing with Leo in his arms. He gently set Leo down and glared at the two villains with newfound determination. Raids noticed the shift in Izuku's focus, realizing that he was more resolute now. Izuku felt a bead of sweat trickle down his brow as he gripped his Demon Slayer sword tightly, reassuring himself that he could do this. Raids commanded the 𝗰𝐽𝐻 to attack, and it surged forward with incredible speed. Neo observed the change, noting that the 𝗰𝐽𝐻 was moving differently than before. Raids explained that this 𝗰𝐽𝐻 was unique. It could analyze and adapt to its opponent's movements quickly. Leo recalled Raid's words from their first encounter, realizing that the creature had become stronger. Izuku snarled and swiftly drew his sword, blocking the 𝗰𝐽𝐻's powerful fist with the back of his blade. The force of the blow sent him off balance, creating a shockwave that echoed across the battlefield. He ducked another punch and aimed a slash at the 𝗰𝐽𝐻's torso, managing to cut through its skin. The 𝗰𝐽𝐻 roared in pain and stepped back, realizing that it could feel pain. Raid panicked, remembering that Izuku had the ability to disable magic. Izuku seized the moment, kicking off the ground and using the 𝗰𝐽𝐻's fear to his advantage. He attempted to slash at the creature, but it evaded his strikes with surprising agility. In response, Izuku flipped through the pages of the grimoire, summoning his Demon Dweller sword. Raids felt a rush of fear, recognizing that Izuku now had 2 swords, one of which was likely faster. With renewed speed, Izuku attacked, but the 𝗰𝐽𝐻 leaped onto a nearby building. Izuku followed, swinging at its torso, but the 𝗰𝐽𝐻 dodged and retaliated with a powerful strike to his ribcage, sending him crashing to the ground. Izuku narrowly avoided another slam and quickly ducked a backhand, slashing at the 𝗰𝐽𝐻 again. The creature's eyes glowed with energy as it charged at Izuku, delivering a blow that sent him sprawling. Despite the pain and BLD, Izuku refused to give up. He recalled a moment from earlier at King's Castle, where 𝗏𝐻𝐼 was devouring food with enthusiasm. She had been oblivious to the chaos outside until Izuku spoke to her. 𝗏𝐼 had been delighted to see him and explained that she had snuck in unnoticed. Izuku admired her stealth and was impressed by her ability to heal. As she focused her energy, Izuku felt a warm glow envelop him, healing his wounds and restoring his stamina. With gratitude, he thanked 𝗏𝐼 in his thoughts, feeling revitalized and ready to face the 𝗰𝐽𝐻 once more. Meanwhile, Noelle was racing across the fields of the kingdom, exhausted after rescuing a family from a fire. She was running low on mana after using her water magic to extinguish flames caused by the 𝗰𝐽𝐻s. Concerned about the people trapped beneath the rubble, she pushed herself to keep going, determined to help those in need. Then something caught the corner of her eye. Noelle called out to Izuku as she saw him defending the little girl from the 𝗰𝐽𝐻, moving quickly between offense and defense. She felt a surge of determination, recalling a distant memory of her brother 𝗏𝐻𝐿's harsh words. "You have no business being here." Fear and doubt washed over her like a tidal wave, overwhelming her heart. She stood frozen, sweat dripping down her face, questioning what she could possibly do. Suddenly, 3 𝗰𝐽𝐻 lunged at her with incredible speed, and she barely registered the danger before a wave of fire engulfed them, scorching them away. Sitting on the ground, she gasped, clutching her heart as panic threatened to overwhelm her. She looked toward the flames and saw none other than the fire captain, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Noelle swallowed hard, feeling grateful but also intimidated. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 shouted at her to stay focused, startling her. He chastised her for letting her siblings' words affect her in battle, emphasizing that hesitation could lead to dire consequences. Noelle felt the intense aura of his fire mana and realized he was right. She remembered Izuku's sacrifice for her and his unwavering determination to protect her. They could both improve and grow stronger together. Meanwhile, Katsuki faced off against 𝗏𝐻𝐿, their clash creating sparks of iron and explosions that echoed through the air. The fight was fierce, with each blow resonating like thunder. 𝗏𝐻𝐿 gritted his teeth as he wrapped his arms around Katsuki, sending him crashing between two kingdoms. 𝗏𝐻𝐿 prepared for another punch, but Katsuki narrowly dodged it and retaliated with a powerful attack, declaring his intent. 𝗏𝐻𝐿 countered with a protective shield, blocking the explosion before landing a solid hit on Katsuki, who struggled to regain his footing. Katsuki coughed, realizing just how outmatched he was. Frustration bubbled within him as he slammed his fist into the ground, acknowledging the challenge of facing a captain. Suddenly, a fairy appeared beside him, prompting his irritation. He recognized her from the dungeon, recalling how she had saved Izuku with a tremendous explosion. 𝗏𝐻𝐿 looked at the fairy with curiosity, unsure of her purpose. Katsuki demanded to know her name, and she introduced herself as Alex, claiming to be there to assist him. Katsuki was skeptical, dismissing her as unimportant. Alex retorted, matching his fiery tone, and their banter escalated. Katsuki then recalled the time she had unleashed a massive explosion, asking her to do it again against 𝗏𝐻𝐿. Alex assessed the situation but refused, leaving Katsuki frustrated. As the battle continued, 𝗏𝐻𝐿 unleashed a powerful attack, sending a silver slash toward Katsuki. He soared into the air, determined to evade the strike. Katsuki retaliated with his own explosive magic, creating a cloud of smoke that concealed his movements. 𝗏𝐻𝐿 summoned a massive eagle to pursue him, declaring that escape was futile. Katsuki demanded to know why Alex wouldn't help him again, expressing his desperation. Alex explained that their previous encounter had awakened her, but she had been dormant for a long time. Katsuki insisted that he needed her power, but Alex revealed a shocking truth. The explosion had come from him, not her. Katsuki was taken aback, struggling to comprehend her words. Alex clarified that they shared the same essence, and her abilities were tied to his own. She emphasized that he had the potential within him, but he needed to 𝐻𝗏𝗏𝐿. The realization began to dawn on Katsuki as he contemplated the connection they shared and the power that lay dormant within him. Katsuki's eyes widened in realization as Alex explained the source of his power. Alex confirmed that all the magic and energy they had harnessed came from the dungeon, and that Katsuki was the embodiment of that potential. He had access to magic beyond his current understanding, capable of creating explosions that could devastate an entire kingdom. Katsuki hesitated, questioning his own abilities, but Alex reassured him that the only limit to what he could achieve was himself. Feeling a surge of confidence, Katsuki leaned back, his mind racing with possibilities. 𝗏𝐻𝐿 approached, sword drawn, and Katsuki seized his wrist with surprising strength, a wild grin spreading across his face. 𝗏𝐻𝐿 felt the intensity of Katsuki's grip, but instead of fear, he sensed a newfound freedom and strength within himself. With this partnership, he realized he could reach greater heights. Katsuki flipped through his grimoire, searching for the right spell. When he found it, he unleashed Explosion Magic Impact. A powerful explosion erupted, engulfing 𝗏𝐻𝐿. The force sent him crashing into several buildings before he finally hit a brick wall, falling unconscious from the impact. Katsuki, breathing heavily, looked at his hands, realizing the extent of his unleashed power. He felt drained, his mana completely depleted, and he collapsed to the ground, exhausted. Alex observed him with a satisfied grin, acknowledging his efforts. Meanwhile, Charlotte was engaged in a fierce battle, dodging the massive purple blasts from 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, who had absorbed the knight's mana. Charlotte, determined to turn the tide, summoned her magic. Briar magic. Blue Rose Paradise. A garden of thorny briars erupted, ensnaring Catherine and restricting her movements. As Catherine struggled against the binds, Charlotte quickly found another spell. Briar magic, scarlet braided appealing battle spear. A formidable spear of briars and roses formed in her hand, and she launched it at Catherine, piercing her shoulder and pinning her in place. Catherine coughed, feeling weakened and trapped. Charlotte declared her intention to take Catherine into custody once the battle was over, leaving her battered and restrained. Elsewhere, 𝐻𝐿𝐴 was injured, blood dripping from his fingertips. Slander and Soul, having recovered from their earlier encounter with the towering 𝗏𝐽, chastised 𝐻𝐿𝐴 for being caught off guard. Ignoring their remarks, 𝐻𝐿𝐴 prepared for a powerful attack, while Slander transformed, covering himself in sand until he matched the 𝗏𝐽's size. Soul watched in awe as Slander swung a massive fist at the 𝗏𝐽, pushing it back with a mighty blow. He declared his determination to end the battle right there. Back with Izuku, he stood firm against the 𝗏𝐽, feeling the pressure of the situation. He noticed blood on the ground, a reminder of the stakes involved. Raids taunted him, boasting about the 𝗏𝐽's strength and the danger it posed. As blasts rained down around him, Izuku drew his second sword from his grimoire, determined to increase his speed. He deflected the incoming attacks with precision, showcasing his skill despite the odds. Raids, confident in his 𝗏𝐽's power, ordered it to finish off a nearby girl. Just as the 𝗏𝐽 unleashed its laser vision, Izuku sprang into action, deflecting the beam with his sword. As he absorbed the mana from the attack, his sword began to glow with power. Realizing the connection to his previous experiences in the dungeon, he prepared for a decisive strike. With a shaky yell, he unleashed a powerful slash, but the energy was difficult to control, causing him to miss his targets by inches and instead strike a nearby tower. Frustration welled within him as he grappled with the overwhelming power. Izuku focused on compressing the power in his blade, determined not to repeat his earlier mistake. Raids, surprised, realized that Izuku had been hiding his mana all along. With a snarl, Raids unleashed a barrage of blasts aimed directly at Izuku. Gritting his teeth, Izuku deflected the attacks, but fatigue began to set in, slowing him down. Just then, a blast slipped past him, targeting a little girl nearby. Panic surged through Izuku as he noticed the danger. In a moment of desperation, he conjured a protective barrier of water around her, shielding her from harm. Raids, taken aback, exclaimed in disbelief. Izuku turned to see Noelle arrive just in time, relief washing over him. Noelle scolded him for not being more careful, but Izuku was grateful for her timely assistance. Suddenly, Raids roared in frustration as more enemies surrounded Izuku. He kicked off against the oncoming foes, flames erupting around him and pushing the 𝗏𝐽 back. This gave him the opportunity to charge at Raids without hesitation. Leo, who had recovered, shouted his support, urging Izuku to give it his all. Izuku closed the distance, drawing both his Demon Slayer's sword and Demon Dweller's sword. With a swift motion, he spun like a tornado, building momentum before striking the 𝗏𝐽, piercing its chest. Leo watched in awe, impressed by Izuku's fighting style. Raids, stunned, questioned how he could have been hit by such an attack. Breathing heavily, Izuku stood tall, gripping his blade tightly as he faced Raids, who was now out of options. Raids cursed them all in frustration. Just then, a new voice interrupted, and everyone looked up to see a figure descending from the sky. The newcomer landed with a thud, creating a small crater. He wore a fluffy open jacket and tattered shorts, his purple hair tied back in a ponytail. Noelle, Izuku, and Leo exchanged glances, bewildered by the sudden arrival. Raids growled in annoyance, recognizing the newcomer as Kai. Kai grinned, explaining that he was eager to meet new people. Without warning, his arm began to twitch, transforming into a 𝗏𝐽's hand. Izuku's eyes widened in shock as Kai lunged toward him, ready to strike. Before the blow could land, flames erupted, severing Kai's 𝗏𝐽 hand. Both Izuku and Kai were taken aback by the sudden intervention. 𝐻𝐿𝐴 appeared, towering over Izuku and assuring him that everything would be all right. Izuku, breathing and drenched in sweat, marveled at 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N's speed and strength, realizing how close he had come to danger. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N confronted Kai, questioning why he would attack someone who was clearly exhausted. Kai, unfazed, explained that he sought a worthy opponent, having witnessed Izuku's earlier victory over a powerful foe. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N's glare intensified, recognizing Kai's intentions. Kai expressed his longing for a challenging fight, eager to test the abilities he had gained. Izuku, still processing the situation, recalled the Nomu he had defeated earlier, realizing the implications of Kai's transformation. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N spoke, condemning Kai's actions and challenging him to a fight. Raids attempted to intervene, but Kai silenced him with a growl. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N took a fighting stance, ready to protect his comrade. Kai introduced himself, and 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N responded with his own name. The tension in the air thickened as both prepared for battle, Kai's grin revealing his eagerness for the confrontation. Izuku, desperate to prevent further conflict, called out to 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N, urging him to consider teaming up instead. Izuku lay on the floor, feeling weak all over as he looked up at 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N with tear-filled eyes. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N had just struck him, and he was confused. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N explained that Izuku was already out of stamina from his earlier fight and too injured to move. He encouraged Izuku not to be disheartened, reminding him that he had done everything he could to assist in the battle. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N urged him to take pride in his efforts and to watch the fight, as it was not every day one got to see a captain in action. Izuku's eyes sparkled with admiration, and he nodded, puffing out his cheeks. Kai prepared for battle, kicking off the ground with immense force, creating a crater beneath his feet. He sprinted toward 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N, unleashing a flurry of punches. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N expertly dodged and weaved, attempting to counter with kicks. The two fighters exchanged blows, leaving smears of red and purple across the ground as smoke and debris filled the air. Izuku, Leo, and Noelle watched in awe, unable to track their incredible speed. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N unleashed a wave of fire, but Kai slipped under it, arching his back to avoid the flames. He formed a fist made of Nomu flesh, spiked and ready to strike. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N countered with a fiery attack that cut through the air, narrowly missing Kai. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N proclaimed that he had never had the chance to face a captain of the Clover Knights before, expressing his excitement for the battle. Kai, fueled by his rage, threw multiple punches, but 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N skillfully dodged and blocked. The fight escalated as 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N pushed Kai back, forcing him to the ground. Kai attempted to stomp down on 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N, but the captain jumped away just in time, leaving cracks in the concrete. The two clashed again, creating a massive shockwave that pushed everything back. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N declared his intent to defeat Kai, summoning a wave of fire that Kai narrowly avoided. Kai retaliated by forming a massive Nomu hand and launching it at 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N, who leaped back to evade the attack. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N, now empowered, prepared to end the fight with a single blow. He blitzed toward Kai, throwing an uppercut that Kai barely dodged. They exchanged blows at an astonishing pace, each trying to gain the upper hand. Kai shouted, demanding to know what made 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N so strong, while 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N focused on the present, refusing to dwell on his past. Meanwhile, Noelle knelt beside Izuku, urging him to help 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N. Izuku hesitated, feeling the weight of his limitations. Leo explained that 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N preferred to fight alone, knowing that their involvement would only hinder him. Izuku clenched the dirt beneath him, grappling with the realization of how far behind he felt. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N and Kai continued their fierce battle, exchanging powerful strikes. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N's resolve remained unshaken, determined to prove his strength. Kai launched a series of powerful punches at 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N, who skillfully dodged back and forth. As Kai landed on the ground, dragging his foot and hand along the floor, he stood back up with a grin, declaring that he wouldn't judge 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N's actions. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N roared and charged at him, delivering a kick that sliced through the air. Kai effortlessly dodged to the left and retaliated with a swift punch aimed at 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N. The fire captain ducked just in time, countering with a punch that struck Kai's jaw, sending him crashing into nearby houses, causing a chain reaction of impacts. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N stood tall, tracking Kai's movements through the town. Suddenly, 𝐾𝐮 erupted from the ground, showcasing his incredible speed. He unleashed a powerful punch, but 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N narrowly avoided it, only to have 𝐾𝐼's foot connect with his stomach. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N was launched back towards their previous battleground. Leo and Izuku shouted their concerns for 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N as he breathed heavily, slowly rising into the air with his palm providing support. Despite feeling crushed and nauseous, he pushed through, knowing he had to stop 𝐾𝐼. 𝐾𝐼 questioned 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N about his regrets, taunting him about his role as a captain and the risks he took for others. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N gritted his teeth, expressing that he had no interest in 𝐾𝐼 and viewed him as a threat to the Clover Kingdom. As a proud captain of the Magic Knights, it was his duty to defeat him. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N charged at 𝐾𝐼, pulling back his foot for a kick, but 𝐾𝐼 dodged and countered with a punch, praising 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N's determination. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N blocked 𝐾𝐼's next punch with his forearm, feeling the impact but refusing to let it deter him. He retaliated with a flaming roundhouse kick, but 𝐾𝐼 gracefully flipped under it, quickly launching a punch that 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N narrowly avoided. A strand of 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N's hair fell as 𝐾𝐼 transformed his arm into a bat, attempting to strike again. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N ducked, but 𝐾𝐼 twisted mid-swing, morphing his arm into a giant fist that connected with 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N's chin, causing him to stagger. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N pushed through the pain, landing on the ground, but 𝐾𝐼 was already there, delivering a powerful blow to his face. Frustrated, 𝐾𝐼 demanded to know more about 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N, who responded with a fiery attack that pushed 𝐾𝐼 back. Despite the wound healing quickly, 𝐾𝐼 charged at 𝐒𝐮𝐴N with relentless strikes. 𝐒𝐮𝐴N staggered but continued to press forward, unleashing a series of fire-based attacks. The battle intensified as 𝐾𝐼 dodged 𝐒𝐮𝐴N's fire magic, retaliating with his own punches. 𝐒𝐮𝐴N defended himself with a wall of flames, but 𝐾𝐼 found a way through, landing another hit. 𝐒𝐮𝐴N coughed up but pressed on, using his magic to create a giant claw of flames that slashed through the air. 𝐾𝐼 managed to dodge, but the fight was taking its toll on both of them. As the battle raged on, 𝐾𝐼 felt boredom creeping in, realizing they had been exchanging blows without making significant progress. He taunted 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N, suggesting that he should give up, or he would end the fight quickly. Meanwhile, Izuku, Leo, and Noelle watched in frustration, wishing they could help 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N, but feeling powerless in their current state. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N continued to breathe heavily, gathering his strength for the next round of their fierce confrontation. He then released a massive surge of spiritual mana, his body enveloped in a fiery aura. Steam radiated from his mouth and body, and lava began to form at his feet. A brilliant aura blazed from him, growing hotter than the sun itself. 𝐾𝐼 wrapped himself in the 𝗰𝐻's flesh, a beak emerging from his scalp to cover his face, yet it couldn't conceal the wild, bloodthirsty grin he wore. He unleashed his ultimate attack, Dragon Phoenix. A colossal tidal dragon erupted from 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N, enveloping him before hurtling toward 𝐾𝐼 at incredible speed, breaking the sound barrier. He poured all of his mana and magic into this final assault. 𝐾𝐼 cackled with glee as he faced the oncoming attack head-on, arms outstretched, ready to clash with 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴N's most powerful strike. He felt the overwhelming aura, potent enough to melt the 𝗰𝐻 flesh from his body, but he stood firm, prepared to endure the pain and power radiating from 𝐒𝐮𝐴N. A tremendous explosion followed, sending waves of smoke and dust across the battlefield. Izuku and Noelle shielded their heads from the blast, Izuku's eyes widening as he searched for 𝐒𝐮𝐴N. He questioned where he had gone, while Noelle wondered if he had been defeated. Leo scanned the battlefield, his eyes widening in realization. But the truth was far more grim. 𝐾𝐼's fist was deeply embedded in 𝐒𝐮𝐴N's chest, half of his skin scorched away. 𝐒𝐮𝐴N spat blood onto the ground, and Leo roared in anguish, calling out to his brother. Izuku gritted his teeth, grabbing his Demon Slayer sword and rushing toward the two. 𝐒𝐮𝐴N, struggling to speak through his injuries, warned Izuku to stay back. Hesitating, Izuku complied, but 𝐒𝐮𝐴N acknowledged him as a worthy opponent, expressing gratitude for pushing him to his limits. He lamented the battle's outcome, recognizing that only one could emerge victorious. 𝐒𝐮𝐴N's life flashed before his eyes, recalling a moment from his past. A young 𝐒𝐮𝐴N, only 14, stood before the captains of the Clover Kingdom at the Magic Knights exam, feeling the weight of their judgment. The king himself had appeared, acknowledging 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼𝐼's hard work despite his lack of natural talent. The king encouraged him to persevere, and 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 felt a surge of determination. Back in the present, 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 summoned all his strength, grabbing 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's skull and attempting to pull it off. 𝐾𝐮 gagged in response, feeling the pressure as 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 roared with all his might. 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼's muscles strained as he exerted every ounce of strength to pull 𝐾𝐮 apart. 𝐾𝐮 struggled, bewildered by 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼's raw power, realizing he was using his own brute strength without any external support. Despite the pain, 𝐾𝐮's fist remained lodged in 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼's chest, and he couldn't comprehend why he couldn't withdraw it. 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 declared that he would not relent until he removed 𝐾𝐮's head. Both warriors roared, each trying to overpower the other. Izuku, determined to intervene, rushed toward them, with Leo close behind. Raids, sensing defeat, ordered the 𝐻𝐼𝐼 to retreat. Some 𝐻𝐼𝐼 took flight, and Raids climbed onto one, vanishing into an open portal. 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 and 𝐾𝐮 continued their struggle, but in a sudden burst of strength, 𝐾𝐮 broke free, ripping his arm from 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼's chest and kicking into the air as his head slowly reassembled. Izuku looked up, seeing 𝐾𝐮's furious expression before he flipped away. Regrowing his arm, 𝐾𝐮 glanced at the portal, realizing he needed to escape. He jumped onto one of the flying 𝐻𝐼𝐼, racing toward safety, perplexed by 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼's incredible strength. Izuku, determined to stop him, leaped onto a nearby rooftop, drawing his demon dweller sword from his grimoire. He aimed carefully and hurled the blade at 𝐾𝐮, declaring he wouldn't let him escape. The sword soared through the air, flames trailing behind it, and struck 𝐾𝐮 in the shoulder. 𝐾𝐮 cried out in pain, glancing back in disbelief. He still intended to fight even after everything that had happened. He struggled to pull the sword from his shoulder, but it wouldn't budge. Suddenly, the sword jerked free and zoomed back into Izuku's grimoire. He winced, realizing his wound wouldn't heal. As he glanced back at Izuku's anger, he slipped through a portal, thinking to himself about the mysterious boy before the portal closed, leaving the Clover Kingdom behind. After all the 𝐻𝐼𝐼 had exited, the portals vanished into the air. Izuku's eyes widened in realization. He rushed toward 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 and 𝐻𝐼𝐼, who was desperately trying to heal his wound. This is really bad. It's too open. At this point he's already. 𝐻𝐼𝐼's voice trembled. 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼's words shocked both her and Leo. He told them not to waste their mana on him. Izuku stood beside them, urging 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 to let 𝐻𝐼𝐼 help him. 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 smiled gently, asking them to sit down so he could share his final words with the next generation of Magic Knights. Despite their nervousness, Izuku, Leo, and 𝐻𝐼𝐼 knelt before him, ready to listen. 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 praised their performance as Magic Knights, expressing his belief that they carried the will of the Knights. He acknowledged 𝐻𝐼𝐼's potential and courage, encouraging her to strive to become an even greater knight than her brother. 𝐻𝐼𝐼 felt tears welling up as the moment became emotional. 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 then turned to Leo, recognizing his fierce side and kindness, assuring him that he would rise to greatness one day. Finally, he addressed Izuku, noting his determination and the way he defended his comrades. 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 saw a spark in him reminiscent of the Wizard King, believing that Izuku could change the Vermilion family for the better. He warned them that the path ahead would be filled with challenges and urged them to promise never to give up. With teary eyes, they all nodded in agreement. 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 smiled warmly, feeling at peace as he took his last breath, knowing the future of the Clover Kingdom was in good hands. Izuku, Leo, and 𝐻𝐼𝐼 leaned forward, looking at 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼's lifeless form. Leo was overwhelmed with grief, crying on the floor in frustration and sorrow. He felt powerless, wishing he could have done something to save his brother. His mind raced with thoughts of how he could have helped, questioning why he had listened to 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼's request to leave him. Soon, the other captains and backup arrived at the scene, shocked to find their friend and teammate gone. 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 lay with a serene smile on his face, a sight that ignited rage and slander, who clenched his fists in frustration. Kaiser sighed, acknowledging 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼's loyalty even in death. Jack the Ripper seethed with anger, vowing to take revenge on those responsible. 𝐻𝐼𝐼 searched for her brother, feeling uneasy that he was absent at such a critical moment. Suddenly she realized Izuku was missing. Her eyes widened in panic as she called out for him. Mimosa rushed to her side, asking what was wrong. Noelle explained that Izuku was gone, and Klaus was taken aback by her words, questioning if she was sure. Noelle insisted that he had been right there, confused about where he could have gone. Meanwhile, in an unknown location, a dark portal opened to reveal the villains who had attacked the Magic Knights. They were seen moving about their base, and among them was Izuku, floating in a small water bubble, unconscious. One of the minions scolded Raids for not following the plan, blaming him for the chaos that ensued. Raids shouted back, deflecting the blame onto Kai, who had prolonged the mission for a fight. Another minion pointed out that Kai had managed to take down a captain, which had helped them close the gap in forces against the Magic Knights. Raids, frustrated, ordered Sally to eliminate Izuku, but she protested, explaining that it was magic nullification, not a simple debuff. Izuku stirred, blinking rapidly, as thoughts of revenge began to form in his mind. Who knows, maybe he wouldn't move around as much as Kai did when Izuku tested the Nomu genes on him. Izuku looked around, feeling an unusual heaviness in his limbs. He thought to himself that he felt tired, almost weightless, as if he were floating on a cloud and just wanted to stay asleep. It felt like a dream, yet it wasn't. He wondered where Noelle, Leo, and everyone else were. Suddenly, Sally moved her hoodie to give Izuku a clear view of her face. She exclaimed that he was awake and asked for his help. In his mind, Izuku thought about how he was in a precarious situation. Sally continued, expressing her eagerness to sing like a bird if the boss asked about their activities. Raids chimed in, wanting to take Izuku for himself. Then, Izuku's eyes widened in shock as the Wizard King, Julius, appeared before them. The atmosphere shifted as everyone in the room felt their hearts drop. Julius smiled, but there was something unsettling about it. He asked how they liked their castle town, and the members of the Eye of the Midnight Sun were taken aback, wondering how he had arrived. They quickly surrounded Julius, ready to unleash their magic, but he remained unfazed. With a swift motion, he shot out large orbs of light energy, obliterating 2 of his attackers instantly. Julius remarked that he had to eliminate them, as capturing all of them would be too difficult. One of the members retaliated with a massive wave of wood magic, but Julius effortlessly countered it with a beam of light, creating a hole in the attack. Julius addressed the villains, questioning why they had come prepared to kill without being ready for the consequences. He then offered a chance for one of them to live if they surrendered, but they defiantly refused. They unleashed a barrage of wind and water magic at him, to which Julius responded with a sigh, expressing disappointment that they couldn't see the potential for cooperation. With a flick of his wrist, he cast a spell that ensnared the villains in a swirling ball of light, leaving Izuku untouched in a water bubble. As the bubble popped, Izuku fell to the floor. Julius acknowledged Izuku, noting that their paths were destined to cross. Izuku, feeling the weight of the situation, realized the extent of Julius's power and the challenge he faced in his quest to become the Wizard King. Julius asked if Izuku could stand, and Izuku struggled to push himself up, feeling shaky. He was determined to rise, knowing he was in the presence of the Wizard King. Julius complimented the villains on their magic and inquired about a mysterious stone tablet adorned with jewels. When the villains remained silent, Julius concluded that he would extract the information from them one way or another. Suddenly, he sensed a figure approaching. A bright light shone behind Izuku and Julius, blinding Izuku momentarily. He couldn't see the shadowy figure holding a grimoire, but Julius could see it clearly even if he couldn't make out the figure's face. Then, in an instant, everything vanished, leaving only Izuku and Julius to ponder what had just occurred. Izuku muttered in confusion, realizing he had been deceived. The figure's goal was to retrieve his comrades, and the speed of the light magic suggested that the boss was someone formidable. Izuku smiled to himself, thinking he would address that challenge later. However, he noted that not all of the villains had escaped. Meanwhile, in the Clover Kingdom, preparations were underway for a ceremony honoring 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿, who had sacrificed his life for the kingdom. The somber atmosphere affected everyone, including the knights. One of the captains, confirmed that they had reinforced the magic wall and restored communication. Another night reminded them of the need to rebuild the townspeople's homes after the battle. Suddenly, 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 sensed a powerful magic presence. In a flash, Julius appeared before the entire kingdom, holding one of the captured villains while carrying Izuku as if he were a child. He greeted everyone with a casual, "Sup, I'm back." Everything seemed to be taken care of. The Wizard King appeared, and 𝐴𝐵𝐵 gasped in shock, recognizing a captive. Klaus also reacted, exclaiming in disbelief, "Isn't that Izuku?" Izuku smiled and waved weakly, relieved to have made it out alive. He dropped onto the floor, sighing in exhaustion. Noelle crossed her arms, chastising him gently for his recklessness, but inside, she was just grateful he was okay. Klaus rushed over, pushing Noelle aside to grab Izuku's shoulder, expressing his overwhelming relief that Izuku had returned alive, tears welling in his eyes. Izuku, maintaining his composure, thought to himself that it would take more than that to take him down. Suddenly, 𝐵𝐵𝐵 pushed Klaus aside and hugged Izuku tightly, her concern pouring out as she exclaimed how worried she had been. Izuku felt flustered, overwhelmed by the closeness, and stammered in embarrassment. Meanwhile, in the Wizard King's throne room, Julius spoke in an angry tone as he looked at 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐴's lifeless body on the bed, covered by the leaders. ――, in the recovery room, struggled to comprehend the loss of 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐴. He had always admired 𝐒𝐿𝐴A's strength, and now that he was gone, ― found himself questioning why he felt this way. 𝐒𝐿𝐴A had been his rival and partner in the Magic Knights, and the realization of his death stirred something deep within ―. He pondered why he cared about 𝐒𝐿𝐴A's fate when he had always believed that those who fell in battle were weak. Yet, he had lost to someone he deemed weaker, which made him re-evaluate his perspective. He had never experienced defeat until now, and it shattered the ego he had built around his strength. ― reflected on his little sister, Noelle, whom he had blamed for their mother's death. Was it her fault she was weak? Was it 𝐒𝐿𝐴A's fault he was dead? He needed to understand more about Katsuki, the boy who fought for others, even those weaker than himself. ― realized he still had much to learn. When asked about his injuries, ― admitted he had been caught off guard by one of the attackers. Jack teased him about it, but ― simply stated that he had lost, and that was the end of the story. Julius contemplated the implications of their enemy's actions, suggesting they had awakened a sleeping lion and robbed a bear of her cubs. Izuku, feeling the weight of the situation, agreed with Soul's determination to increase their forces to prevent such tragedies from occurring again. The captains declared their resolve to grow stronger, and Leo burst into the room, expressing his relief that he and Izuku were alive, but tears streamed down his face as he lamented the loss of his brother. Izuku, feeling a surge of determination, reminded Leo that they had both faced death together and that he would grow stronger too. 𝐒𝐿𝐴A's words echoed in his mind, urging him to believe in the potential for change within the Vermilion family. Leo, fueled by his brother's legacy, proclaimed his intent to surpass 𝐒𝐿𝐴A and become the Wizard King. Izuku, inspired by Leo's determination, vowed to change the Vermilion family and grow stronger for the sake of 𝐒𝐿𝐴A and the Clover Kingdom. The room filled with hope as the next generation of the Clover Kingdom looked bright. In a moment of levity, Izuku suddenly realized he didn't know Leo's name, causing a humorous exchange between them. Leo introduced himself as Leopold Vermilion, insisting that they should be friends. The revelation that Izuku had not connected the dots about Leo's family left them both in disbelief. Meanwhile, the Wizard King announced that the attack on the kingdom had been orchestrated by an anti-Clover Kingdom terrorist group. The Magic Knights would take precautions to prevent such events from happening again, having captured a member of the Midnight Sun who had attempted to destroy the kingdom and gathered valuable information from them. The ceremony for 𝐒𝐿𝐴A took place in the heart of the kingdom, where townspeople, knights, captains, and the Wizard King gathered to pay their respects to the strong warrior captain. The Wizard King announced that he was currently under investigation for the damage to the castle town and was also searching for Project Nomu, the entity responsible for such destruction. The citizens' expectations for the Magic Knights had grown even greater. The reason the enemy breached the kingdom's defenses was due to the absence of the mages who operated the defense system. They were either incapacitated or had betrayed the kingdom. Though he had not made this information public yet, the evidence was too compelling to ignore. The Wizard King struggled to believe it, but he suspected that this situation could be linked to 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, or as the people of the kingdom referred to him, All for One. In an unknown location, Raids roared in frustration, clutching his head as he lamented his injuries. He vowed vengeance against Izuku, declaring that their next encounter would end with him creating an army of gnomes just for Izuku. Kai glanced at him, unsure of who he was referring to. Sally, walking beside them, identified Izuku as the anti-magic guy and expressed her longing to keep him alive for her experiments. Kai rolled his eyes at Sally's obsession with testing, memories of his past flooding back, causing him to grip his arms as his Nomu self threatened to surface again. He struggled to control his emotions. Sally assured them that she had healed all their injuries, but Raids shouted in annoyance about the itchiness of his wounds and insisted that he was the first to lay eyes on Izuku, claiming the right to deal with him. A purple portal opened, and 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 stepped through, greeting them. He mentioned wanting to introduce a new teammate who would be staying with them for a while. Raids groaned at the thought of another addition, while Sally excitedly welcomed the idea of a new friend. Dabi appeared behind Zen, looking away as he introduced himself. Sally enthusiastically shook his hand, leaving Dabi feeling overwhelmed by her energy. Zen then approached a chamber that held an unknown body, inquiring about his son. Sally smiled and informed him that she had given his son all the spells he had taken from the knights years ago. Zen expressed his approval, while Dabi asked Kai about the mysterious figure. Kai shrugged, unsure of what to say. Zen explained that the body belonged to his son, Tamura Shigaraki, the perfect Nomu who would carry on his legacy as the next king of fear. In Castle Town, Izuku and Noelle wandered through the expansive area created by the Wizard King. Izuku felt lost in the vastness and was handed a muffin by 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, who encouraged him to stay calm. Noelle, feeling a bit embarrassed, also requested a muffin. As Izuku enjoyed the treat, he thanked 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐵 for healing his wounds during the recent war. 𝐀𝐀𝐮𝐵, cheeks puffed and flushed, dismissed his gratitude, stating she was merely helping a teammate. Noelle was curious about how 𝐀𝐀𝐮𝐵 had entered Castle Town, to which 𝐀𝐀𝐮𝐵 demonstrated her magic by transforming into a small sheep and floating into Izuku's hoodie. Izuku spotted Klaus, Mimosa, and Katsuki in the distance and called out to them, relieved to see Katsuki alive after the war. Katsuki, annoyed, shouted back, asserting that he would never fall to something as weak as their previous enemy. Izuku, Noelle, and 𝐀𝐀𝐮𝐵 instinctively backed away, sensing Katsuki's intensity. Klaus cautioned Katsuki to take care of himself as he was still recovering. Izuku expressed his intention to leave the kingdom for training, promising to return stronger. Katsuki grinned, declaring he had his own plans. Mimosa, blushing, resolved to become strong enough to stand beside Izuku in battle one day. As they parted ways, Alex interrupted, urging Katsuki to focus on their training. Katsuki retorted, calling Alex an extra, which left Izuku amused at the familiar banter. At Black Bull's HQ, Magna exclaimed how exhausting their recent mission had been but celebrated receiving a star for his efforts. He and Luck returned from what they claimed was an intense mission. Magna welcomed Izuku back, expressing concern for his well-being after the war. Izuku shared that he had been promoted to rank Class 3 Knight, feeling a mix of pride and embarrassment. Magna was astonished and turned to Luck, inquiring about the ranks below Class 3, to which Luck shrugged, unsure. Izuku was taken aback, realizing they didn't know the rank system. Yami explained the ranks among all Magic Knights, noting that neither Luck nor Magna had changed since their arrival, placing them both below rank at that moment. Izuku was recognized as their superior. Luck and Magna were taken aback by this revelation. Yami instructed Izuku to address Magna simply by his name, which made Izuku pump his fist in excitement, affirming his captain's orders. Magna, feeling a mix of embarrassment and frustration, insisted that Izuku was the only one who treated him with respect. Yami casually mentioned that 𝐀𝐮𝐵 was ranked Class 1, prompting her to playfully demand worship from Magna, who complied without hesitation. Yami, with a smirk, acknowledged the situation, while Izuku appeared troubled by thoughts of Mr. Fugolian. Yami, sensing Izuku's distress, encouraged him to move on from the past, reminding him that 𝐻𝐻𝐽 would want him to continue fighting and pursue his goals. Izuku, overwhelmed with emotion, nodded in agreement. Yami then shifted the conversation to training, asking if Izuku wanted to improve his sword skills. Izuku's eyes lit up with determination as he eagerly agreed. Outside, Yami stood before Izuku, cigarette in hand, ready to assess his sword. Izuku presented his Demon Dweller sword, and Yami examined it critically, suggesting that a larger sword might be more effective. Izuku was taken aback by Yami's offhand comment but explained that his sword could absorb magic from others. Yami, intrigued, requested to see this ability in action. As Izuku extended his sword towards Yami, the captain felt a surge of magic being drawn from him and quickly released the blade. Izuku's eyes widened at the strength of Yami's magic. As he prepared to unleash a powerful attack, Yami's commanding presence urged him to act decisively. Izuku, feeling the pressure, released a massive slash toward Yami, who remained unfazed as the attack narrowly missed him. Yami realized that Izuku struggled to control the magic within his sword, likely due to his inexperience with magic in general. Izuku, frustrated by his lack of control, fell to the ground, and Yami suggested that 𝗵𝗡 could be the solution to his struggles. He explained that ki was an energy emitted by living beings, allowing users to sense their surroundings and predict attacks. Izuku listened intently, realizing the potential of this new knowledge. Yami continued to explain that 𝗵𝗡 would enable Izuku to control the magic in his sword. He emphasized the importance of connecting with his sword and flowing his magic through it. Izuku, filled with determination, vowed to learn. Yami instructed him to focus on the flow of life around him, emphasizing the need to block out his senses. As hours passed, Izuku remained in meditation, struggling to maintain his focus. Just then, 𝗏𝗏𝗏 approached, curious about Izuku's intense concentration. Izuku explained that he was working on his ki training under Captain Yami's guidance but felt he hadn't made any progress yet. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 offered his support, understanding the challenges Izuku faced. Izuku's eyes sparkled with excitement at the idea of going out. He hesitated, shaking his head as he snapped out of his thoughts. He expressed his apologies to 𝗏𝗏𝗏, explaining that he needed to focus on 𝗵𝗡𝗏. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 groaned and playfully wrapped an arm around Izuku's neck, urging him to live a little. He pointed out that Izuku had been sitting in the hot sun for hours and deserved a break. After considering his friend's words, Izuku smiled and agreed, eager to know what they would be doing. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 grinned widely, announcing that the three of them were going on a group date. Izuku blushed deeply at the thought, overwhelmed by the idea of a date. A few minutes later, they found themselves in a lively setting with three women, one of whom was significantly older than Izuku. The atmosphere grew quiet, prompting 𝗏𝗏𝗏 to suggest they introduce themselves. He confidently declared his name and profession, putting on his best charm. It was now Luck's turn, and he nudged him to speak up. Luck hesitated, unsure of what to say, but ultimately decided to share his interests. With enthusiasm, he introduced himself and expressed his love for fighting, emphasizing the thrill of battle. Izuku, feeling the pressure to make a good impression, took a moment to gather his thoughts. He recalled his mentor's encouragement to be confident and not to stutter. Taking a deep breath, he introduced himself and shared his dream of becoming the Wizard King. The women forced smiles as they listened to the boys, their interest waning. One of the girls, Erica, mentioned her job at a tailor shop, while Ellen shared that she worked at a salon, and Rebecca mentioned her job at a restaurant. Their introductions lacked enthusiasm, causing 𝗏𝗏𝗏 to scratch his head in confusion. He attempted to steer the conversation back to a more engaging topic, expressing interest in their work. Erica showed a flicker of interest when she asked about the Magic Knights. 𝗏𝗏𝗏, eager to impress, turned to Luck, who excitedly recounted a recent encounter with bandits. The room fell silent as everyone processed his words. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 quickly shifted the focus to Izuku, who nervously scratched his head while recalling his experience in the war. He mentioned his injuries, trying to lighten the mood with a chuckle, but it only added to the awkwardness. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 felt a wave of frustration wash over him, realizing that neither Luck nor Izuku was helping their cause. He lamented the lack of normalcy among their group of friends. Just then, Luck's enthusiasm broke through the tension as he expressed fascination with the idea of using magic for haircuts. Ellen blushed and demonstrated her magic, capturing 𝐻𝐼nroll's attention. Seizing the moment, 𝐻𝐼nroll boasted about his own abilities, claiming he could transport them anywhere in the blink of an eye. Erika seemed intrigued by the idea, while Izuku struggled to connect with Rebecca, who appeared distracted. He felt a knot of anxiety as he noticed her glancing at the clock. Determined to break the ice, he shouted out a question, but it fell flat. Rebecca sighed, expressing her frustration with the situation. She revealed that she was there at her friend's insistence, hoping to find someone to help support her siblings at home. Izuku's eyes widened in surprise as he learned she had a large family. He shared that he also had siblings, albeit not by blood, and reminisced about the ups and downs of their time together. The conversation began to flow more naturally as they connected over their shared experiences. Rebecca admitted that she missed her siblings, who often ran around her room. She found them cute, and as she tilted her head at Izuku's words, she realized how much they had in common. She smiled and continued the conversation, acknowledging that while they could be annoying, their absence made one miss them even more. She laughed, noting that when with friends, one could act silly, but with siblings, there was a sense of coolness. Noelle, watching from outside the window, felt nervous as she observed the connection forming between Izuku and Rebecca. She had followed the boys, hoping the date wouldn't succeed, but now she found herself caring about Izuku's interactions. She thought to herself that she didn't want to replace anyone or talk to him more than necessary. Izuku complimented Rebecca, saying she gave off the vibe of an older sister. She responded playfully, teasing him about not looking like the oldest son. Suddenly, a tall, intoxicated man approached them, towering over the two. He made a comment about Izuku being a magic knight, questioning how someone so small could hold such a title. Izuku chuckled nervously, trying to defend himself. The man then recognized Rebecca, commenting on her hard work and implying that she must be desperate for attention. He grabbed her shoulder, making her uncomfortable. Izuku, feeling protective, intervened, asking the man to let her go. The man laughed, not intimidated by Izuku's plea. In a sudden display of strength, Izuku lifted the man and slammed him against the ceiling, stunning everyone in the room. He declared that people should get to know Rebecca better, emphasizing her strength and independence. This made Rebecca's heart race with warmth. Panicking, Rebecca urged Izuku to leave, and they dashed out of the bar, with Noelle trailing behind, worried about being seen. They found refuge in an alleyway, where Rebecca caught her breath while Izuku seemed unfazed. She thanked him for his help, feeling relieved. Izuku expressed concern for his friends, Luck and 𝐻𝐼nroll, who were likely having a rough night. Rebecca pondered for a moment before asking if he liked someone. Noelle perked up, eager to hear Izuku's response. He blushed and admitted he had a crush, feeling embarrassed. Noelle's heart raced, wondering if he meant her. Rebecca, feeling a twinge of disappointment, encouraged Izuku, suggesting he visit her home to play with her siblings. He agreed, though Noelle felt conflicted about his interest in someone else. Meanwhile, Izuku daydreamed about confessing his feelings to someone special, determined to become the Wizard King and win her heart. 𝐻𝐿, on the other hand, was having a good day as he prepared for his sister Mary's birthday. He loved her dearly and had spent a fortune on gifts. As he walked through the Clover Kingdom, he spotted Izuku with Mary, swinging her around. Anger surged within him. How dare Izuku hold his sister? 𝐻𝐿 felt possessive, determined to be the only one to make her smile. Not just some green-haired brat. A foot connected with Izuku's left cheek as 𝐻𝐿 slammed him onto the ground, looming over him as if Izuku had committed a grave offense. 𝐻𝐿's voice was dark and dangerous as he demanded Izuku to get away from Mary. Izuku gulped, looking up with the foot still pressing against his face. He recognized 𝐻𝐿 as the one known for his nosebleeds. 𝐻𝐿 snarled, increasing the pressure on Izuku's face, but Izuku remained unfazed. With a cheerful tone, he reassured 𝐻𝐿 that his training had prepared him for this moment. Mary interjected, pleading with 𝐻𝐿 to stop. She declared that Izuku was going to be her husband. Noelle, who had been watching from the shadows, gasped in disbelief. 𝐻𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 felt a wave of anger wash over him, his calm demeanor slipping as he processed Mary's words. He muttered something under his breath that Izuku couldn't quite catch. When Izuku asked him to repeat it, 𝐻𝐻's response was filled with venom, declaring that Izuku was dead meat. The commotion drew the attention of an elderly woman who approached the group, asking about the noise. Mary's sister, Sister 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, insisted it was time for Mary to return to the church. 𝐻𝐻 dismissed her, asserting he would spend the day with Mary for her birthday. 𝐀𝐮, unfazed, warned 𝐻𝐻 about his influence on Mary, criticizing his attitude. Izuku, feeling the tension, interjected that 𝐻𝐻 shouldn't speak to an elderly woman that way. 𝐻𝐻 retorted, telling Izuku to stay out of it. After a few minutes, Rebecca invited Izuku to join her for dinner, which excited him. While he enjoyed the meal with the children, 𝐻𝐻 lay on the floor, unconscious from blood loss. Izuku expressed his delight over the meal, prompting Rebecca to smile as she washed dishes. He mentioned that she should share the recipe with his friend 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, who was a talented cook. One of the siblings playfully asked Rebecca if she was going to marry Izuku, causing her to blush and deny it. Later that night, Izuku settled into the guest room at Rebecca's place, covered with a blanket and peacefully snoring. Suddenly, the door creaked open, revealing 𝐻𝐻, who stood over him with his grimoire in hand, intent on revenge. He unleashed a powerful spell, and Izuku awoke just in time to deflect the blast, landing outside on a snowy platform. Confused, Izuku looked around, questioning the sudden change in scenery. 𝐻𝐻, undeterred, shot another ray at him. As Izuku dodged, Rebecca rushed outside, calling for him. She expressed her concern about her missing siblings, which alarmed Izuku. He tried to reassure her, suggesting they might have just stepped out for a moment. The night grew tense as cries for missing children echoed around them. Izuku felt a sense of dread wash over him. 𝐻𝐻 continued to attack, and Izuku narrowly avoided another blast. Rebecca was bewildered by the chaos, noting the sudden snowfall. Noelle appeared from the shadows, shivering and surprised to see Izuku. 𝐀𝐮 sensed the cold magic in the air, realizing it was a form of weather control. Magna approached, asking about Mary's whereabouts, and 𝐀𝐮 confirmed the grim reality of the situation. 𝐻𝐻, frustrated, prepared to strike again. Izuku intervened, taking the blow meant for Sister 𝐀𝐮. He breathed, urging 𝐻𝐻 to calm down and consider what his sister would want. He reminded 𝐻𝐻 that they needed to work together to find the missing children and bring them back safely. 𝐻𝐻 sighed, looking away, contemplating Izuku's words. Izuku and 𝐀𝐮 were determined to rescue the children. 𝐀𝐮 declared her intention to save her kids herself, and Izuku agreed, ready to support her. They took to the skies on their magic brooms, with 𝐻𝐻 riding his and Izuku hanging on for dear life. They soared toward the location where the children were being held captive. In a dimly lit tunnel, several children sat on the floor, appearing entranced. A man cloaked in dark purple attire, with groggy black breathes and boots, observed the scene. He questioned the necessity of the children for their plans to change the Clover world. Another masked figure, in a beaked mask and an open vest with purple fur, insisted they were essential. The man known as Nine expressed his skepticism about their methods, particularly regarding a girl named Eri. Chisaki, another member of the group, explained that Eri possessed unique magic that could rewind people to a time before magic existed. He believed that with her powers he could eliminate magic and mana from the world entirely. Nine challenged Chisaki's vision of a perfect world, suggesting that a world without magic would be dull. Chisaki countered by arguing that the chaos and suffering in the world stemmed from magic itself. He believed that if magic had never existed, there would be no wars or deaths. Nine shrugged, unconvinced, and shared his own vision of a world where only the strong thrived. Chisaki called for Eri, who stepped out of the shadows, looking frightened. He requested her to extirpate the mana from the children, but Eri hesitated, fearing the consequences. Chisaki's impatience grew, and he urged her to comply. Eri, torn between her fear and the pressure from Chisaki, finally agreed, though her resolve was shaky. Meanwhile, Izuku, 𝐻𝐻, and 𝐀𝐮 were closing in on the source of the mana. 𝐻𝐻 sensed the powerful energy and alerted the others. Izuku felt a mix of anxiety and determination as they approached the danger. As Eri stood before Chisaki, her fear intensified, but she felt compelled to act. Just then, Ghosh burst into the scene at high speed, calling out for Mary. He was relieved to see her safe. Nine recognized the arrival of the Magic Knights and prepared for confrontation. Ghosh unleashed a powerful attack, creating a swirling blue hydra that defended against incoming threats. Chisaki pondered the situation, realizing that the knights had sensed the mana signature. Just as he was about to cast a spell, Izuku descended from above, wielding his sword with fierce determination. He confronted Chisaki, demanding to know if he was responsible for the chaos. With a swift motion, Izuku struck Chisaki, sending him flying and disrupting his plans. 𝐀𝐮 landed beside Izuku, ready to assist the children. She began lifting them one by one, urging her sister to hurry as Izuku prepared to face the villains. Together, they stood firm against Chisaki and Nine, ready to fight for the children's freedom.